Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 1, Viridian Legacy. As always, I'm Lumpy Bronzearm, I'll be your DM for today. Last season, Lux Et Umbra returned to Druma from the Orc lands of Belkzen. Having rescued Mythanar Arion from his long servitude in the north, a rest was in order. Khan had discovered a new friend in her laboratory, a six-legged rat she named Pipette, who began to whisper secrets and magic in her ear. Rhys, ever this free spirit, seems to have been struck by the wiles of Prince Mythanar. He liked it, so he put a ring of sending on it. On their way south to Etran's Folly, Zavid noticed strange occurrences along the road. Magic gone weird, new casters popping up out of nowhere, and arcane ley lines ripping open to form dangerous rifts in the wilds. After reuniting with their kobold friends at Shadow Valley, Lux Et Umbra introduced Rhys and Frag to the people of Etran's Folly. The townsfolk were instantly welcoming to the newest members of the village. Deep under Shadow Valley, Zavid revealed his plan, and something a bit more grisly. He had kept the head of Ilkana Alanor, White Mother of Isker, preserved in a magical jar. The enchantments upon the container were weak and offered little control over the Banshee Queen, but that is where Rhys, Khan, and Frag came in. Utilizing their disparate skills in medicine, crafting, negatronic technology, and necromancy, Lux Et Umbra crafted a brain cylinder for Ilkana as a means to communicate with the now re-undead villain. Gleaning all the information they could from the unwilling mind of Ilkana, Lux Et Umbra set off once more. South they trekked, meeting a few familiar faces and some odd new ones along the way. From the city of Almas, Khan's hometown, it was decided the best way to cross the inner sea inconspicuously would be on Griffinback. Halfway across the great body of water was the capital city of Absalom, a necessary stamp on any tourist's checklist. Having taken in the sights and the sounds, business needed attending. Zavid stood atop a public pulpit and gave a rousing pantheistic sermon warning the people of various faiths of the coming apocalypse, the Conjunction, a rare celestial aligning of the planets in the Galarian system. In 3 months' time, the remaining 4 planets, Verces the Line, Castorville the Green, Eox the Dead, and Akaton the Red will come into alignment. Thus far, 6 planets are in conjunction, each having a physical effect across the world. Mass hallucinations, booming birth rates in all fauna, schisms forming between and within religions, mages becoming more powerful and unfocused, once permanent sandstorms weakening, and animals becoming more feral. When the time is right, the Dread Cabal, a cataclysmic alliance of mad gods, will take advantage of the chaos to attempt to release Rovagug, the Devourer. But not if Lux Et Umbra has anything to say about it. From Absalom, discretion was far more necessary. Upon magically flying steeds, they ran across the remainder of the sea. Along the way, Zavid was distracted by having his new staff stolen. Giving the thieves chase, Lux Et Umbra came across a hidden cave, inside of which were some trapped skeletal pirates. In exchange for the bones of a long-dead sea dragon, Zavid helped free the Skellywags. The raised undead dragon named Cecil showed its thanks by taking our heroes to its horde.
I forgot it was Skellywags. Sorry.
Skellywags, yes.
That's crazy.
Thank you. The raised undead dragon named Cecil showed its thanks by taking our heroes to its horde. Deep within were bountiful treasures amidst a royal Osiriana funerary boat. Rhys's eyes nearly burst from his skull upon realizing he was in the presence of Ma'at, the Song Pharaoh, god king of all warmed by Ra. With haste, Zavid attempted to breathe life into the ancient monarch, not realizing she was already a powerful lich. Much was learned from Ma'at, especially concerning to Rhys, the elf, was the news that his father, the Goblin King, may not actually be his real father. He was revealed to be Balag Makar, an Ifriti fire djinn Ma'at had commanded to guard an ancient labyrinth. Utilizing a parade as a distraction, Rhys snuck into the palace of his birth through a sewer grate. Once an audience with the Goblin King could be had, all was revealed. Ma'at and Balag Makar agreed to help Lux Et Umbra in the coming conjunction if they could destroy the devil at the center of their labyrinth. Delving deep within the maze-like prison, Lux Et Umbra was tested to their limits. The temptation to sin abounded within the ever-shifting walls of the labyrinth of Shimon Sek. However, our heroes managed to make it to the central chamber. Within was the Bottle of Binding, the eternal prison for Zalish Kar of the Bitter Flame. Inside this pocket dimension, Lux Et Umbra made a startling discovery. The bodies of Rhys's sister Adelina Giltleaf and her adventuring companions Anyanka Jenkins and Gunnar Gunnarsson. Having only learned of her existence that morning, Rhys had to steel his resolve to finish the fight. Zavid protected the bodies as Khan flew into the fray, ultimately claiming victory by ripping off the arms of the furious devil. Having bested the labyrinth, Lux Et Umbra returned to Ma'at's throne room. Mixing the God King's Assyriani necromancy with his own, Zavid resurrected all 3 of the Windseekers. A tearful reunion was had with Rhys and his long-lost sister Adelina. One sister found, one to go. Out from Shimon-Sek they marched, into the deserts of Assyrian. The Windseekers knew their airship, the Windseeker, was out there somewhere. Among the sands there lay a ruin surrounded by an ever-weakening sandstorm. Atop its highest peak was an island, chained and trying to escape, where lay the Windseeker. As repairs to the massive transport were done, many secrets of the past were found. Chief amongst these was the revelation that the key to Rovagug's prison, long known to be within the royal blood of the 4 Arion siblings, was not a physical key at all, but rather the knowledge of how the prison is opened. Deeper into the desert, Lux Et Umbra checked in a desperate attempt to get lost, for the only clue they had to work with was that Serenulia Arion, Danny's eldest sibling, was living atop a massive tortoise that can only be found by those who are lost and desperate. Severely disadvantaging themselves in their wanderings was wise, as the great Monhatnus ultimately found them in time. Brought back to health by the Malenki, a secret group of halflings, Lux Et Umbra had done it. Serenulia had finally been found. Only one last task remained within the sands of Assyrian. Zavid's patron god Cabriri had bade him delve underground into the city of ghouls, Nemret Noctoria. Within, it became obvious that Karotz, a councilman from the cult of Cabriri, had enacted a coup and taken control of not only the Cabriric faithful, but also the entire ghoul population. Lux Et Umbra silently and tactically snuck into the palace and assassinated Karotz with surgical precision. Having set the city onto the path of democracy, Lux Et Umbra surfaced once more. Before they could leave the continent, however, they had to chase down a truly gargantuan bird of legend, Dwayne the Rock. Upon the Windseeker, an epic battle ensued, ending with the bird falling from the sky due to the power of a full broadside. Finally convinced to become their ally, Dwayne submitted, and Lux Et Umbra began their long flight home. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 2, The Inevitable Beach Episode. Last time, Lux Et Umbra returned home victorious from the deserts of Assyrian. Upon the decks of the Windseeker, our heroes landed outside the small hamlet of Etrin's Folly, where our adventure first began. Wanting to stretch their legs, Reese took Adelina and Sarah for a walk about town. Their first stop was the Feed Mill, a local tavern frequented by the locals. However, they found the place oddly empty, save for the elder owner, Amora. She had mentioned some commotion on the outskirts of town, but didn't rightly know what was going on. Across town, Con was excited to get home to her laboratory within Shadow Valley. Normally, the Bold Ones, a group of Sarenrae-worshipping kobolds, are bustling about the fortress, but not on this day. Empty room after empty room lie within. Growing more nervous by the moment, Con found a letter in her lab. Reading it, her heart sank. Noala, Con's elvish girlfriend, had been drafted back to the Kionine army as an archer. Not able to tell her goodbye, Con could only sit and wait for what was to come. Having an instinct for when trouble was brewing, Zavid's first thought was to check on the Plague Stone. This old rock sits on the outskirts of Etrin's Folly, a relic of a bygone plague. Within the stone sat a virulent disease, placed there by the vile alchemist Vilri in an attempt to destroy the town. Though Vilri was dispatched ages ago, the Viridian vapor remained, slowly eating away at its stone prison. Seeing a gathering crowd, Zavid quickly called out to see what was happening. The kobold Fork, now the sheriff of Etrin's Folly, was thrilled to see his companions once more and waved them over. It quickly became clear that the Viridian vapor was slowly dripping from the Plague Stone and would need to be dealt with immediately, lest the town succumb to the death within. As Con whipped up an inoculation to the disease, Reese managed to convince most of the townsfolk to the efficacies of the vaccine. Most took it without question, but one lone hunter refused on religious grounds. However, it was realized that the man's life was ultimately worth sparing, so the shot was administered as quickly and stealthily as possible. During the hubbub, Zavid focused his shadow magic to not only the Plague Stone itself, but also to the living entities within. Shifting the entire stone, disease and all, to the plane of the abyss, the town is safe once more. No more will the sword of Damocles hang over the city of Etrin's Folly. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 3, Cynosure is coming to town. Last time, Lux Et Umbra returned to Druma once more. Though their grueling adventures in the desert of Assyrian was long and harsh, their triumphant return was greeted with familiar faces and long overdue embraces. As they waited within the throne room of Castle Arion, Lux Et Umbra learned that their friend Queen Dany had eloped with her fiancé Bruce Mithralarm, making him the new sitting prince of Druma. Mythanar attempted to regale all with the tales of his newfound love of surfing as hearts danced around Reese's head. While catching up, a cackle of magical energy filled the chamber as a teleportation circle appeared upon the floor. When the smoke cleared, standing once more within her throne room was Queen Dani Arion, along with her brother Eredril, grandmother Empress Talandia, Queen's Guard Demirius, and a menagerie of new pets. Palling around as though no time had passed at all, Lux Et Umbra instinctively knew what was needed. Fruity drinks at the beach! Mythonar at the lead, everyone readied themselves for a day of sand, surf, and sun. The stark contrast between the harsh desert of Assyrian and the lovely beach of Druma was not easy to miss. Having not had a drink in a month, Dani made a beeline to the nearest vendor, a sea star triton named Patricio Stella, who sold icy treats from his dire hermit crab, Barry. To the surprise of no one, Dani ordered for everyone the largest drink Patricio offered, the triple gooberberry surprise. Knowing cultish symbols when he sees them, Zvid quickly formed a gambit, showing his hand to Patricio and gaining a cryptic boon in return. Khan regaled Dani with tales of her daring do in the burning deserts to the far south, while showing off her newly learned magics taught to her by Pipette. Ever the lifelong besties, Rhys and Dani began making plans for their respective weddings and futures as in-laws. Needing some time away from the social energy, Zvid took a walk to a nearby cave, with Khan sensing something was off and following close behind. Within the mouth of the cave was the freshly dead corpse of a massive dragon turtle. With some investigation, it became clear this mother dragon turtle lost her way, laid her eggs within the cave, and was killed by trapped swarms of piranha and brine sharks. The effects of Breath of the Cradle caused her to lay hundreds of eggs, far more than is normal for her species. Normally a boon for an endangered creature, unfortunately Verces the Line has come into alignment, distorting navigation, causing her babies to not know how to find the ocean, an easy snack for the waiting piranha. Thinking quickly, Zvid summoned forth Cecil, the skeletal sea dragon, and explained the situation. Cecil agreed to help the remaining turtle babies until the conjunction ends. Not wanting them to be raised without their mother, Zvid raised her himself, as a skeleton that is. Dani then used her recently learned magic of teleportation to send the new family to their safe home beneath the inner sea. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 4, Raising a Cold One. Last time, Lux Et Umbra made last-minute preparations to leave Druma. Zvid visited the city's graveyard and his friend Alec Chubb, the Undertaker, to aid him in growing his army of contracted undead. Before meeting up for breakfast, Khan enlisted the help of Dani's husband, Prince Bruce Mithrilarm, in building the chassis of her Mega Mole mech. In the throne room, Khan and Zvid were approached by Empress Talandia Adasaril, who wished to speak with Zvid. With a flick of her hand, the powerful elf wizard cast a distracting dancing light and stopped time all around her. In their new privacy bubble, Empress Talandia questioned Zvid's motives behind magically disguising Princess Seranulia, Talandia's eldest granddaughter. Seeing no lie in his eye, the Empress was content with Zvid's assurance that he had the best interest of Sarah and the world at large in his heart, so she allowed time to flow normally once more. A moment later, Rhys joined them for breakfast, but the smell gave him away first. Rhys explained that during his sleep he had a strange dream wherein he was walking through a snake-infested marsh, then awoke with his socks soaking wet with stagnant pond water. This alarmed the ever-paranoid Zvid, who also had an unpleasant dream involving swarming insects, filaments from lights in the sky, and sleeping animals all within a wooded glen. He awoke with an autumn leaf in his hair. With Khan's dream described, the pieces began to come together, an angelic choir floating in a sunbeam while their friend Rupert Mound upon Hill napped. Lux Et Umbra each dreamed of each other's greatest fears. Sensing danger, Zvid attempted to contact the awakened groundhog, but received only pained snores. Khan's familiar Pipette was asked to assist, teaching Khan how to scry on Rupert. Finding a fey creature looming near, Zvid contacted her telepathically. It quickly became apparent this druid was attempting to save Rupert and needed assistance quickly. Onto the Windseeker they leapt and took off like a shot towards the near Mathis forest. Finding the glade exactly as they'd dreamed, Lux Et Umbra knew they'd found the right place. Searching for clues, it became clear some form of dream parasite was nearby. Khan decided to use herself as bait, having Anyanka put her into a magical slumber. Slinking from the trees came an invisible creature to begin feasting upon Khan's nightmares. Zvid attempted to paralyze the Dream Eater, but found it was immune to such magics. Realizing it was ambushed, the creature morphed into the massive form of a celestial Naga Swarmkeeper, a hideous amalgamation of Lux Et Umbra's fears: angels, snakes, and swarming insects. Seeing every sin he had ever committed flash before his eyes, Zvid was nearly killed by this creature's burning holy fire. Within the constricting coils of the Naga, Khan relived the most traumatic moment of her childhood, seeing Uncle Little Big Tony crushed and eaten by an anaconda. Reese,
Not
thankfully,
Little Big Tony.
not Little Big Tony.
Little Big
Uncle
Tony.
Little Big Tony.
Uncle
sorry.
Little Big Tony, yes. Reese, thankfully, managed to avoid getting his hair blasted by bug vomit while hiding behind a tree. Though beaten, bruised, and battered to within an inch of their lives, Lux Et Umbra prevailed. Waking the druids, including their friend Rupert, finally a breath was taken. Taking in what had happened, Zavid realized that a cynosure rupture had taken place. The elemental plane of dreams has begun to leak out into the material realm. The only thing that can be said for certain is that sometimes the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 5, Riddleport Me This. Last time, Lux Et Umbra left the near Mathis Forest and their friend Rupert behind them. Craving a cold one, they boarded the Windseeker and set sail for the quiet mountain town of Fogton. Zavid attempted to park the airship when they arrived and did a truly bang-up job. The rolling fog gave away where they were, or rather, were near. Somehow, Gunnar, the highly experienced pilot, managed to miss the town of Fogton by about a mile. It quickly became apparent that Verses the Line's effects were accelerating. Arriving at the Brood Awakening Tavern, Lux Et Umbra was welcomed back by familiar, loving faces. A warm reunion and cold ales were had by all. The following morning, Khan followed up on a lead from a newcomer to Fogton, a mechano named Roxy who had escaped the Cogito Machinus. After the cult's destruction at the hands of Lux Et Umbra, Roxy escaped in the Mark I prototype of Khan's ingenious M0L3 boring bot invention. Roxy said Khan was welcome to have the broken machine, and the tiny tinkerer was more than happy to take it off her clockwork hands. Across town, Reese had been carried over the shoulders of Gurkha Kahanui for their second date. Gurkha had made many upgrades to her house, including a training obstacle course. Putting Reese through his physical, mental, and magical paces, Gurkha ended the date with a song and dance. Later in the day, Zavid had a mission long overdue. Up Mount Fogton, Lux Et Umbra trekked once more. Through blinding snow and past endless drop-offs, finally the cabin of Beat Els came into view. The old dwarf, in truth an ancient silver dragon, was happy to see his friends once more and welcomed them in for tea. Zavid quickly explained he had at last returned with the power to raise Beat's long-dead mate, Gwenastraja the Gold. Straining himself to the absolute limit, Zavid was able to borrow power from Reese, Khan, Anyanka, and even the mighty Beatalzatrax to peel back the shadow of death from Gwen's soul. A tearful yet joyous reunion was had, as Gwenastraja was told of the 1,000 years she had missed while dead. During Lux Et Umbra's stay in Fogton, several townsfolk, along with Beat, had talked about strange dreams they had the night before. A troubling revelation. Putting together the cryptic details, Lux Et Umbra rushed back to town, just in time to discover a massive barrel of ale was near bursting in the basement of the Brood Awakening Tavern. Enlisting the help of their two dragon friends, Beat and Gwen flew the barrel high into the sky as it exploded in a torrential downpour of beer. As it splashed to the ground, the liquid began to coalesce together into 20 tiny elementals that began to cause havoc in the town. It wasn't long before Reese had the inspired idea to drink the elementals with the veracity of a dwarf in the desert. As Khan, Zavid, and Anyanka began to join in on the delicious fun, the tiny creatures grouped together and smashed into one another, revealing a massive, stout elemental. Confused for a moment, the creature eventually began to speak in a guttural, bubble-filled language, which Reese was thankfully able to translate. Introducing himself as Bud the Wiser, he taught everyone of the existence of the elemental plane of beer, of which he is the king. Seeing his potential as an absolute party animal, Lux Et Umbra led Bud the Wiser into the Brood Awakening and partied hard with the townsfolk long into the night. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 6, Can't Make Omelets Without Cracking Egg. Last time, Lux Et Umbra awoke in the peaceful mountain village of Fogton. A long night of drinking with Bud the Wiser, Elemental and King of Beers had left Reese hungover, but Khan and Zavid managed to hold their liquor. Having breakfast at the Brood Awakening Tavern, Lux Et Umbra discussed the recent spate of dreams leaking into reality, the cynosure rupture. The approaching conjunction has caused tears to form between the plane of dreams and the material plane, making even sleeping a dangerous gamble. As the days progress, it has become more and more difficult to glean potentially prophetic visions from the chaotic randomness of actual dreams. Yet, with enough diligent combing, a picture began to form. The Windseekers, Gunnar and Anyanka, revealed they'd each had vivid dreams the night before. Though clues floated to the top, more information was needed. Reese's sister was needed. Outside of town, a young orc was yelling up to the Windseeker through a barely intelligible drawl. Recognizing him as Jazz Rotgut, Dirge's younger brother, along with his companion Bobby Boo Bear, Lux Et Umbra waved him down to see what was the matter. As the apple does not far from the tree fall, it turned out Adelina had Jazz's sister Arya stay the night with her aboard the Windseeker. Saying their final goodbyes to Fogton, the airship rose into the sky with Zavid at the helm. With Adelina's dream described, the pieces fell into place. The pirate city of Riddleport. Yet more dangerous questions arose as a mysterious, decades-aged key had also appeared on the elf captain's deck. Upon arrival in the town, more information was yet needed as to what secrets this key unlocked. Umbra searched for a vendor of magic scrolls, and as luck would have it, the off-gray market provided. Scrolls of object reading in hand, it was quickly determined the key actually belonged to Adelina, yet she had no memory of this. Within Riddleport, a bank known as the Eighth Piece was known for its discretion in regards to its customers' deposits. Within the vault was piles of gold, priceless statuary, and a solid gold candelabra that would really tie Shadow Valley's foyer together. Alongside the treasure was a rolled note from Adelina herself. The Windseekers had knocked off a corrupt government, made off with some booty, then cast a mind blank on themselves so as not to have the treasure's location divulged if caught and tortured. At the harbor was a massive stone ring stretching across the entire bay, laying dormant and mysterious for millennia, confounding the greatest arcane minds Galarian had to offer. The ring lay cold, until the day Lux Et Umbra came to town. Combining Zavid's shadow magic, Khan and Reese's impossible ability to speak ancient Castravelli, and an eye-wateringly expensive magic scroll, Lux Et Umbra was given a vision. The Ring of Riddleport is in truth a Stargate, and upon learning this truth, the ring began to activate once more. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 7, One Man's Trash. Last time, Lux Et Umbra discovered an ancient secret. Within the harbor of the pirate city of Riddleport, a massive stone ring had lain dormant for millennia. Covered in indecipherable runes, the brightest minds of Galarian had failed to glean any truths from the ring. Even with the added hyperfocus gifted to these scholars by the alignment of Aposte the Messenger, no progress could be made. Until, that is, Lux Et Umbra weighed anchor in Riddleport. Through magic, wealth, wit, and a recently learned extinct dialect of Elvish, our heroes learned the secrets of the ring. However, there was not long to celebrate as a portal opened up in the center of the ring, out from which emerged a mighty space kraken. Thinking quickly, Reese used his extensive knowledge of language to attempt communications with the kraken. As it turned out, the titanic squid and its leviathan anglerfish minions wanted nothing more than to return home. But not before slaying their enemies, the ice chewels. Huge, rime-frost-covered crab-like aberrations clacked their mandibles as they descended upon the harbor of Riddleport, and the soft, tasty sailors thereon. Quick as a flash, Lux Et Umbra teamed up with the spacefaring monstrosities to try to put low the arthropods. While a lithe vidolith dangled its bioluminescent lure hypnotically to distract an ice chewel, Khan the Bloody lived up to her namesake, leaving nothing but chum for the fishes. Reese made a quick crab kebab with the peppering of magical arrows into the frozen creatures, and while the chewels may have been immune to the frigid vacuum of space, Zavid discovered they had no such resistance to his divine shadow magic, ripping the very soul from one's body, leaving only a steaming husk. As the final crab creature came ashore, the kraken dispatched it with a single blow of its mighty tentacle. Acting quickly, Zavid attempted to calm the citizens of Riddleport by loudly explaining the creatures are lost and want to go home, then showered the city in informational pamphlets about the conjunction. Further out to sea, a plan was hatched. Utilizing a hunk of regurgitated space whale ambergris as a planar focus, Zavid was able to shift the mighty kraken and its lieutenants back to the cold blackness of space. Having had enough of Riddleport, Lux Et Umbra set off northwest upon the Windseeker, towards the lands of the Linorm Kings. The further north they fly, the colder the air chills, the faster the snow falls, and the thicker the sea ice grows. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 8, Narwhal, Farwhal, Wherever You Are Wall. Last time, Lux Et Umbra sailed over the steaming sea. Leaving behind the pirate city of Riddleport, our intrepid heroes traveled further north towards the land of the Linorm Kings and the city of Skjoldmur, Gunnar's home. The flight was smooth and northwest bound over the steaming sea. As Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers recounted their strange but seemingly inconsequential dreams they had had the night before, Khan spotted something on the horizon. Zavid pulled the Windseeker in for a closer look, as the maps showed no sign of land here. Closing in, it became clear that it was not an island at all, but rather a floating garbage patch. Separated into distinct sections, connected by crude rope bridges, it was obvious that someone was living here. Rhys and Khan hopped onto their mounts to investigate, while Zavid stayed with the ship, making bets with Gunnar as to what they would find below. Landing on an island patch made of metal cogs and gears, Khan and Rhys began to look about. Rhys found what appeared to be a tiny tunnel entrance, far too small for him. However, such a thing cannot stop Khan the Bloody, who bamfed into her rat form and began to investigate within. Round and round the tunnels wound, until Khan came upon a large opening and the strangest sight, a 2-foot-tall humanoid salamander creature. Using her mousy instincts to communicate with the salamander, Khan coaxed it up topside. The creature spoke with a strange burble-gurgle sounds, but thankfully Rhys has an ear for language. Introducing itself as Biff Biff of the Salvage-manders, the small humanoid was quick to fawn over Khan and Rhys, as they had come from the sky above. It was not long before the ruckus drew out more Salvage-manders, along with their leader, Bobble Shaman Yup Yup. As it gave a rousing sermon, Yup Yup revealed that the Salvage-manders had recently received prophetic dreams of the Conjunction. Since they lacked the knowledge to understand their dreams' meaning, it was decided to bring the Salvage-manders aboard the Windseeker. Zavid lost his bet to Gunnar, but quickly pivoted to teacher of the small creatures. As Zavid explained what was happening in the world, the Salvage-manders revealed that the Great Firemander, in reality the Archdevil Floros, seems to have been kidnapped and is being drained of his heat power. The cosmological revelations were cut short, however, by several pods of vicious narwhal attacking the Salvage-manders' flotilla. Knowing that the narwhal were being affected by both Abaddon the horse and Breathed the Cradle, Lux Et Umbra quickly jumped into the fray. Gunnar tripped off of the Windseeker, belly-flopping into the water next to 2 pods that ravenously descended upon him. Not wanting to miss an opportunity to convince other small creatures that she is a god, Khan flew towards the horned cetaceans, summoning a chain of devastating lightning in her wake. Having grown fond of Gunnar during their travels, Rhys didn't want to see him become whale food, so he dove down on Owlback, scooping up the soaked Viking to the deck of the ship. While most of the threat has been neutralized, there still remain a few Salvage-manders who need saving. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 9, The Festival of Sagas. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had made new friends in the steaming sea. Floating freely amongst the waves was a massive flotilla made of garbage, upon which lived a tribe of salamander creatures who called themselves the Salvage-manders. While getting a feel for the strange goings-on with the creatures, a pod of vicious narwhal, heavily affected by Abaddon the horse and Breathed the Cradle, beset upon the trash island. Acting quickly to save their amphibious amigoes, Lux Et Umbra set upon the bloodthirsty whales. Rhys dove into the icy water to save the last Salvage-mander, flying it to the deck of the Windseeker. Using bottles filled with lightning, Khan gave a shockingly violent display. Forming his shadow into sharp tendrils, Zavid bled out several of the violent carnivores. The Salvage-manders saved, Lux Et Umbra convinced the little guys that their flotilla and the ocean are no longer safe with the looming conjunction. Lifting off upon the Windseeker, Salvage-manders aboard, Anyanka called a northwestern heading. It was not long before Adelina spotted the icy coast of Skjoldmer, Gunnar's homeland. Not wanting to make a scene, our intrepid heroes piled into 2 dinghies and rowed to the shore. Friendly faces abound, as Lux Et Umbra was welcomed to the whaling village and invited to the Festival of Sagas, a 5-day-long holiday celebrating storytelling in all its myriad forms. It was easy enough to find the celebrations by just following your nose. In the center of town was a wide selection of fun and games. Rhys won magical armbands of athleticism by beating the rune-clad brawler in bare-knuckle boxing. Though she did vomit violently, Khan managed to scarf down every slice in the pie-eating competition, winning a priceless t-shirt and a place in Skjoldmurray legend. At the Jester's stage, a crowd waited in anticipation, each armed with tomatoes. A man named Edgar Bergen and his Viking puppet Sven Triloquist came out on stage. Though his stand-up set started off entertaining the crowd, the dummy quickly soured them, prompting them to anger. Zavid, never missing a chance at shenanigans, cast a protection spell on Sven Triloquist, disallowing the audience to hurl their produce. Anger boiling on their faces, the spell was released alongside a hail of tomatoes. Having their fill of comedy, Lux Et Umbra sat down at a table filled with strange map, dice, and papers. Each has chosen a character and has entered a world of imagination, the world of offices and overtime. Can Lux Et Umbra save the Tavern Times newspaper from the dreaded printing press mimic? We'll find out today. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 10. A Norse, my kingdom for a Norse. Last time, Lux Et Umbra continued their day at the Festival of Sagas. A long-held Skjoldmuri tradition, the holiday is a week-long festival celebrating storytelling of all kinds. Our intrepid adventurers decided to give a try to a new thing called Offices and Overtime, a game of imagination, storytelling, and random chance. As the protectors of the Tavern Times newspaper within their game, Khan stealthily changed the game-winning dice roll to a natural 20, thus defeating the fearsome printing press mimic and saving the day. Since obviously nothing like this game exists in real life, Lux Et Umbra berated the players for retreating from real life into their little game of stories. During the explanation of why these players should go outside and touch grass, Larry the office manager, or OM, revealed he had a disturbing dream. Within the recent effects of the Cynosure rapture, Lux Et Umbra knew this was likely prophetic. Prodding further, Larry revealed cryptic details of a guard dog protecting a glowing hallway. As a parting gift, Zavid gave his old and unused cold iron dagger to Larry so he and his friends can train for the coming conjunction. Further into the Festival of Sagas, a drinking contest was next. Never missing an opportunity for competition, Gunnar and Adelina challenged Zavid to partake. Horn after horn of sweet ambrosia went down Zavid's throat like candy, barely phasing him at all. Standing victorious, Zavid and Adelina won their custom-carved horns as a prize. Not wanting to miss a thing, Lux Et Umbra went finally to the Nine Cups table. Though a standard tarot reading, the results were disconcertingly personal to each. As they began to tire of the festivities, Gunnar asked if he could visit his old home by the forest lake, obviously trying to stall the ultimate goal in Skjoldmur. Near a frozen lake sat a small log cabin. Upon knocking, a small old woman answered. It became clear she was Gunnar's niece, Inga's daughter's daughter, his last surviving family member. The reunion was short and somewhat sad, as Inga's mind has fogged with age. With a promise to take care of Inga in her dotage, Lux Et Umbra made their way up to the hill to the longhouse of Ash the Red-Haired. Within the warm wooden hall sat an old man, flanked by a burning raven and fiery wolf. His friends supported his back. Gunnar stepped forward and laid all before the man who exiled him 80 years ago. Much to everyone's surprise, Ash welcomed Gunnar with a firm handshake and the wisdom and clarity of the past that only comes with age. Bade by his adopted Ifrit father Balag Makar, Rhys was sent to the far north to seek this man, for he knew a secret many did not. Heat is being stolen away from the land, hot springs going cold, more wood required to keep homes warm, pyromancers using higher-level magic for the same effects. Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers have agreed to investigate this thermal theft. Can they find the culprit? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 11, Both Alike in Dignity. Last time, Lux Et Umbra prepared for a cold journey. They had traveled far to the north, to the homeland of their friend Gunnar Gunnarsson, to the whaling village of Skjoldmur. Rhys had received a vision from his Ifrit father Balagmakar to seek the leader of these lands, Ash the Red-Haired. The powerful fire Jinn had sensed from his home within the elemental plane of fire that heat was being siphoned away from Skjoldmur. Hot springs going cold, fires not burning as bright, and pyromancer's magic weakening. During the dead of night, Lux Et Umbra set off up Mount Skjoldmur to investigate a missing scouting party. In the worsening snowstorm, the hot springs were found, however, they had been frozen solid. With stacks of perception spells cast upon himself, Zavid was able to see frigid cylinders deep under the icy pools, all leading up the mountain. Higher on the terraced slope, Lux Et Umbra was shocked to spot the lost scouts frozen and stuck fast in place. From her experience with alchemy, Khan was able to determine these people and springs had been frozen, unnaturally flash frozen, and that one had died while seemingly having smelled something terrible. More answers were needed, so Rhys took it upon himself to climb to the top of a frozen waterfall and let down ropes for the others. At the summit of Mount Skjoldmur, the blizzard blocked everyone's sight. Everyone, that is, save for Zavid. Having the keen foresight to give himself heat vision, the party did not fall headlong into a trap. A massive Lenorm, a more feral dragon, was chained to a mighty tree overlooking a wound in the mountain through which flowed a river of fire. Gunnar recognized this beast from his past, having failed to slay it 80 years ago. Seeing that the Lenorm was guarded by two disgusting, fetid, pus-seeping demons, Zavid bound one to his will with his magic. Within a whirling fog summoned forth by Anyanka, Gunnar threw himself into the fray, protected by Khan's invisibility magic. Rhys snuck to the side and peppered the beast with arrows as Khan and Gunnar hacked into it with sword and axe. Using his possessed demon to occupy the other, Zavid kept the foul, diseased creatures away from the group. While deflecting a deadly bite away from Khan with his shield, Gunnar raised high his axe once more, slicing off the head of the beast. Not out of danger yet, Lux Et Umbra worked together to shut the fire portal before it could kill them all. In a flash, Ash the Red-Haired landed upon the mountain peak to bear witness to a thing not seen in centuries. The cold lands of the north will be reunited once more under the banner of the Linorm King. Gunnar and Anyanka have opted to stay behind in Skjoldmur to train this land of simple whalers into fearsome, lightning-breathing, longboat-flying dragon berserkers. After all, Ragnarok approaches. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 12, Both Alike in Dignity, Part 2. Last time, Lux Et Umbra faced three great enemies, the dreaded Low Battery, the wrathful time zone differences, and the chaotic beast only known as Naptime, all reared their vicious heads. The onslaught was nearly too much to bear, cutting our adventure short. However, not before Zavid was able to gather some information. The disgusting sepsis demon that guarded the fire river atop Mount Skjoldmur was left high on the peak during Gunnar's coronation to Linorm King. As a powerful necromancer, Zavid realized this creature was no ordinary demon. It was an undead demon. Knowing that his former enemy, Ilkana Alinor, turned flesh golem ally, Liliana Thriceborn, had once sought the secrets of necrodaimancy, Zavid called her up at once. After the shock of seeing in the flesh what she spent a century striving for wore off, Liliana was able to fill in some details. The demon lord Shax, creator of the Babau blood demon, had long dangled the secrets of these magics in front of Ilkana. A carrot on a stick he used to manipulate the White Mother of Iskar like a pawn in his great game. Upon realizing that the Lord of Murder had never intended to gift her with his secrets, Liliana's purpose was galvanized in her mind. Reaching back into the memory of Ilkana, her own yet not her own, Liliana recalled Shax once, decades prior, berating her for a minor failure. Shax roared that if she could not do his bidding, he would melt the lock himself. Having seen firsthand the theft of Skjoldmur heat, along with Pipette bearing witness to a blinding orb of fire being worked upon the Runeforge, it seems clear. Shax, Demon Lord of Murder, is planning to not only release Rovagug, but to turn the walls of the Dead Vault into molten slag, so none can imprison the rough beast ever again. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 13, Westbound and Down. Last time, Lux Et Umbra awoke after a long night of festivities. Their good friend Gunnar Gunnarsson had just been crowned Linorm King amongst his people, the Skjoldmur. Having learned the ancient secrets of magically walking through their Ent Shard, our heroes decided to pop back home to Shadow Valley for a quick visit. Khan volunteered to open the rift, giving her a taste of nature magic she had never before experienced, while Rhys and Zavid dragged through the corpse of the Taiga Linorm slain the night before. The Bold Ones and Liliana Thriceborn were surprised but excited to see Lux Et Umbra home so much sooner than expected, and as it turned out, their good friend Queen Dany was also visiting home from Castle Arion in Druma. After a quick reunion, the headless feral dragon corpse was revealed, much to the shock of the kobolds. However, all quickly got to work dismembering the Linorm and crafting fantastical items from its body. During the hubbub, Lux Et Umbra's Mumator, Ankh, revealed he had found something while mining out his labyrinth. Deep under Shadow Valley, near Khan's laboratory, was a long pickaxe-hewn tunnel at the end of which was a chamber. Ankh had broken into a long-forgotten room, sunken into the ground and forgotten to the centuries. Scattered about were beautiful trinkets, letters written in a strange dialect of Dwarvish, and a stained glass window of Shalin. Finding more questions than answers, Lux Et Umbra put their heads and magics together to figure out what was happening here. Pushing forward further down the tunnel was a collapsed brick wall. Trusting in their sneakiness, Khan and Rhys stepped in, shocked at the hulking mechanical sentinels guarding two sarcophagi. It slowly became clear that this was the tomb of Xander and Veltel, the prodigal star-crossed lovers. Thought to only be fictional characters in a tragic dwarven play, in truth their houses would not accept their love, so they accepted the hemlock. Not wanting to activate the automatons and get into a fight, a plan was hatched. Khan and Rhys cast their newly learned invisibility spells on themselves, while Zavid entered the ethereal plane and Dany magically bolstered the skills of all. Moving past the sentinels with ease, Khan climbed up to the torso of a machine guard, picked the lock to its chest compartment, and stole the key from within. Once both keys were secured, Reese and Khan slipped them into the sarcophagi and turned, revealing a stair beneath.
I'm on mute.
All right, thank you. Ever vigilant, Reese snuck down to scout ahead, finding himself in a small alcove covered in the dust of ages. Reese discovered what appeared to be a golden shrine to a dwarven goddess. Khan knew immediately that this was an effigy to Bolka, dwarven goddess of marriage, love, and relationships. Being as he is the most in tune with the divine, Zavid convinced Dany to hold her marriage to Bruce Mithralarm here, under the eyes of Bolka. Realizing she was already wearing the dress, Dany agreed and swiftly teleported back to Druma. The next morning, the shrine of Bolka was abuzz with preparations, when at last, in a flash, Dany arrived with her family, closest friends, and fiancé. As the music began to rise, Arwen shook flowers onto the carpet as Ares brought forth the ring. Having practiced the words dozens of times, Zavid performed the heart bond ritual under the loving gaze of Bolka. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 14, The Mordant Spire. Last time, Lux Et Umbra celebrated the marriage of Queen Dany Arion and Bruce Mithralarm. All of their friends, family, and townsfolk showed up to the reception at the feed mill, the local watering hole. A raucous party was thrown, as rowdy as the town of Etrin's Folly could manage for a royal marriage anyway. Percy Month provided the spicy catering, much to the chagrin of Zavid's sensitive tummy. Reese had a couple stout ales and took to the dance floor, entertaining none but himself. As is her queenly duty, Dany made the rounds, ensuring all enjoyed the party. During the festivities, a wagon led by Devon McAllister pulled up outside the feed mill, carting a huge wedding cake behind. This immediately struck Zavid as suspicious, as Devon had recently been acting much more antisocial than usual. The planet Triaxis the Wanderer had been heavily weighing upon Zavid's mind, body, and faith since its alignment a month prior, so he easily recognized the same effects within Devon. With some questioning and a little magic, Zavid was able to determine some dark force had coerced the farmer into delivering the cake. Not wanting to start a commotion, Zavid took the reins of the wagon, but not before realizing his magic powers had been severed. Panicked, Zavid hayad the horses forward, but after a short distance his magic came back. Using the power of Mork, he then let all of Lux Et Umbra know there was an emergency and to evacuate the feed mill. In the ensuing chaos, Zavid was only just barely able to cast True Seeing upon himself before it being tackled to the ground by the cause of this magic sink. A terrifying magic bane Bandersnatch, a beast of the Fey world, held Zavid down as Dany, Reese, and Khan jumped into the fray. It became quickly apparent why Devon was forced to deliver the cake for Dany's wedding. It was, in truth, a cake golem. Khan quickly learned that her gladius simply sank into the spongy fiend food flesh of the golem, causing little actual damage. Luckily for Khan, she was able to dodge out of the way as the cake golem lobbed flames from its candles. Unfortunately, the pinned Zavid took the full brunt of the conflagration. As Reese and Dany exited the feed mill to help, two small semi-mechanical bird drones, of the kind the Cogito Machinist was known to use, burst from the cake golem, dive-bombing Dany and Seratulia, the simulacrum of Princess Seratulia Arion. Blood and ice water were drawn from their bodies, and the bird drones attempted to flee, their genetic prize in tow. Knowing their gambit was at risk, Lux Et Umbra allowed Dany's blood to be taken, as her grandmother Empress Talandia Adasaril had cast several enchantments upon it. The enemy will get nothing useful from Dany's blood, and it will reveal where they have taken it. Seratulia's ice water would reveal that she is not in actuality Seratulia Arion, so Dany took action. Using her ever-strengthening druid magic to transform herself into a massive black dragon, Dany took to the skies, chasing down the bird drone, crunching it between her sword-length fangs. From a distance, Reese sloughed off enough of the cake golem's moist, delicious innards by using his arrows of elemental water to render it a puddle of useless batter. Seeing its goal half completed, the magic bane Bandersnatch teleported away, leaving a bewildered Lux Et Umbra thanking their lucky stars the enemy had fallen for their ruse. But how long will their luck hold out? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 15, Axis of Rotation. Last time, Lux Et Umbra finally arrived to the Ironbound Archipelago. Adelina had shared with Reese that this was their childhood home. Zavid landed the Windseeker a bit away from the Gilt-Leaf cabin so as not to startle their mother. Through the forest, they followed Adelina until a quaint homestead with a massive pink-blossomed tree came into view. Steeling themselves, the Gilt-Leaf siblings knocked on the door and waited. A moment later, a lovely old elf woman answered, dropping her staff in her surprise. After a brief explanation that they were indeed real, Rhys and Adelina embraced their mother Leilani for the first time in a century. The stay was not long, however, as Lux Et Umbra had a business meeting with Asmodeus to attend soon. Before laying down to bed, Leilani explained that the huge tree in her yard was in truth an Ent shard. Rhys and Adelina's father, Gerald Giltleaf, had been a powerful archdruid in life, and in death he wished to continue the cycle. Leilani buried Gerald with the Ent shard acorn he had worn around his neck his entire life, growing forth the massive tree. With some help from Danny's druid magic, Rhys was able to have a short conversation with his late father, learning not only the locations of every Ent shard on Golarion, but also the priceless knowledge that his father is proud of him. During the night, Danny was awakened by strange whispers upon the air. Waking Rhys, he too could hear the strange calls approaching by the nearby Mordant Spire. Lux Et Umbra knew it needed to investigate, especially since neither Zavid nor Khan could hear the whispers. It quickly became apparent only elves were affected by this torturous noise. Following the whispers out to the coast, the Mordant Spire came into view. Pipette's home lies at the base of the tower, across the violent shoals. Using Cabreric magics, Zavid gave all the power to stealthily glide over the water, not catching the eyes of any mindless spire elves crawling around the outside. The entrance to Pipette's home was a tiny hole in the side of the tower, so through magic and bendy bones, Lux Et Umbra wiggled their way inside. Within lied a moss-covered cavern deep below the Mordant Spire. Pipette led Lux Et Umbra down to a stone ring pit filled with bones from former faithful witches, before a carved statue of Lao Shu Po. Pipette touched the statue, blinding Lux Et Umbra for but a moment. When their eyes cleared, they stood awestruck at the divine form of Lao Shu Po herself, goddess of stolen secrets made flesh upon the world. With a loud gulp, Khan stepped forward, accepting the power offered her from her patroness. A small piece of preserved godflesh, the meat of a kavna that raised a humble rat to the standing of a god, was placed in Khan's hands. Scarfing down the succulent morsel, Khan's eyes and fur glowed bright with divine energies, burning the very pigments out from them. As the dust settled, before Lux Et Umbra stood their friend, Khan Rizzolo, having undergone deamorphosis, the first Nephilim of Lao Shu Po. Knowing the importance of what is to come, there was no time for celebration. Lux Et Umbra quickly made their way into the Celestial Hallway, a demi-plane through which divine creatures can travel the planes. Pipette quickly discovered the gateway to Abaddon has been locked tight by Urgathoa. Lux Et Umbra knew this might be a possibility, so Plan B was enacted. The river Styx winds its way through most of the outer planes, including Abaddon. After a moment of discussion, it was decided to attempt to reach the Styx via Abadar's domain, the plane of law itself, Axis. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 16, The Sewers of Sayashto. Last time, Lux Et Umbra arrived within the realm of Axis, having left Pipette's home beneath the Mordant Spire due to the way to Abaddon having been locked by Urgathoa. A new route was taken. Knowing that the river Styx flows through nearly all of the outer planes, reaching Abaddon is only a matter of sailing there. Easier said than done. In a flash, our heroes arrived within a stone room guarded by star-filled creatures telepathically speaking celestial. Further in, a massive orrery depicting the multiverse gave Zavid a chance to explain the broader strokes of Golarion cosmology. It wasn't long before a beautiful glowing elf approached them. Recognizing her as an axiomite, a law elf, Khan introduced their number. In kind, Lieutenant Fanalix welcomed Lux Et Umbra to the city of Sayashto, capital of Axis. Though before they were allowed to leave, they had to go through axiomatic customs. The mountain of paperwork nearly made Khan and Rhys's eyes roll out of their heads, though Zavid found the mithril-clad documents comforting. During the mind-numbing process, Lieutenant Fanalix said movement via the River Styx would be difficult, as travelers are required to have permission from a petitioner, a local politician. With the power of orcish belief magic, Zavid made a quick call to the deity Gork, asking for guidance. Gork revealed a petitioner by the name of Ao Paul had gone into hiding, as someone was blackmailing him. If Lux Et Umbra could help him, he would surely give permission to travel the Styx. Having finally finished all the paperwork and needing more information, Khan remembered an old circus friend of hers had retired to Axis. Wasilka the Fantabulous, a mute halfling mime, welcomed Khan and her friends into her cottage with open arms and a friendly backflip. It seemed the rumors Wasilka had heard was that a mysterious cult known as the Secret Shade wanted the petitioner removed from office to install their own hand-picked candidate. An address and a lifelike drawing of the petitioner in hand, Lux Et Umbra set off into the field of gourds with a plan. Having convinced a farming Axiomite couple to allow them into their home in exchange for Dani reinvigorating their crops with her druidic magic, Khan set to work making Rhys even hotter by disguising him as petitioner Eopol. This ruse was a clever ploy by Zavid in an attempt to draw out the forces of the secret Shadow, loyalists to the god Norgorber. Lux Et Umbra had heard rumors of petitioner Eopol's good friend Taldaris, an inevitable, originally from the material plane, being the last one to see him. Hearing this name confused Khan, as Taldaris was the name of the first emperor of Taldor upon Galarian some 6,000 years ago. Sneaking into the home of the inevitable proved suspiciously easy. With the power of true seeing, disguise kits, and good old-fashioned stealth, Lux Et Umbra was able to get the drop upon a strange gnome woman. Her face and body made entirely of earthworms, the wriggling mass realized she had no escape, and introduced herself as Nibs, servant of the secret shade. In exchange for her life, Nibs agreed to take Lux Et Umbra to her leaders within the sewers of Sayashto. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 17. Will the real secret shade please stand up?
Oh, stop.
Thank you.
Oh.
I will never stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had found a contact of the secret shade. Within the home of Taldaris, Rhys led the way, sneaking past the deadly defenses. On the top floor, at a desk, sat a gnome woman wearing a cloak. Getting closer, Khan saw that she was actually made entirely of writhing worms. Having gotten the drop on the wriggling druid, Dani convinced the gnome, named Nibs, to take them all to her leader in the sewer. Outside Taldaris' home, everyone's mounts were as they left them, save for Rhys's owl, which had a pricey parking violation tagged to its leg. As Rhys counted out the electrum for his fine, Zavid's true-seeing magic spotted a scrying eyeball above the doorframe. In a flash, he dispelled the censor, and Lux Et Umbra fled upon their mounts. Landing outside of Honorgrave Memorial Park, Nibs revealed that the entrance to the sewers was in the middle of the park, in view of people and inevitable guards. Gaining entrance was a test unto itself. Leaving them to find their own way in, Nibs' worms dug into the soil and out of sight. Combining the power of arcane, divine, occult, and primal magics, Dani, Khan, and Zavid were able to silently and sightlessly teleport all of Lux Et Umbra on top of the secret entrance to the sewers of Sayashto. At the bottom of the ladder, Nibs waited to welcome them to the black market. Within were many proprietors of less-than-legal wares. Unstable scrolls, volatile mutagenic potions, and spice-negating sauces were but a taste of the multitudes of things on offer here. Though most of these vendors seemed nice enough, one raised the hairs on the back of Zavid's neck. A halfling woman named High Potentatress Dunesta Fiddlywonk was selling the holy and unholy symbols of various deities that adorned her robes. This is a highly heretical act, as the symbols must be taken from the corpses of slain clerics, and then to sell the symbol for profit is adding insult to deadly injury. Rounding another corner, Lux Et Umbra ran into an all-too-familiar face in this most unexpected of places. Ollie, the snake oil salesman, ran out of Etran's Folly during the Pride Festival, had apparently taken up refuge beneath Axis. Peddling his bottled piss even to this day, Dani and Zavid saw an opportunity for revenge. For Ollie is known to Lux Et Umbra. When Grand Vizier Archibus Baldebard had placed a bounty on the return of then-Princess Dani Arion, Ollie was eager to claim it for himself, leading directly to her capture. Zavid and Dani convinced Ollie he needed to atone for his sins, and in doing so gave him a new holy symbol of Cabriri on which to pray. Knowing this idiot couldn't possibly keep his mouth shut, it will only be a matter of time before Dunesta Fiddlywonk claims another symbol to sell. Knowing they have a mission, Lux Et Umbra walked to the center of the Sayashtan Black Market. Therein stood Klakosik, Naga, and head of the illegal bazaar, alongside a massive sewer hydra. Zavid began to explain Lux Et Umbra's great need to gain entrance to the river Styx, until his true seeing caught a quick glimpse. A shadow flashed across the head of Klakosik. Zavid could only just barely make out what it was. Nyarlathotep. Mid-sentence, Zavid released his strongest magic yet, dispelling the mind control while spinning around to destroy yet another scrying eyeball within the room. Klakosik was confused at first, but his faculties quickly returned. Thankful to Lux Et Umbra, Klakosik warned them that his co-conspirator Hamal Kai likely already knew of their coming, and would have many defenses within the lost silhouette. Down the pipe they slogged, making their way to a small pier, upon which stood a frightening horned daemon blocking their way. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 18. Aghast from the past. Last time, Lux Et Umbra delved into Dusk Fathom, the realm of Norgorber. Tugging on the threads of a conspiracy has led our heroes into the lost silhouette deep beneath the sewers of Axis, the elemental plane of law. Through the smelly sewers they waded until stopped at a small dock by two Thana-daemons, beings of pure evil from the Urgathoan land of Abaddon, leapt at Lux Et Umbra, not realizing their fatal error. Arwen and Ares pounced upon the daemons before Dany could utter a single word of command. The beasts hunger. From their robes, the wicked creatures pulled dark crystals, which they crushed in their hands. Soul gems, imbued with the soul of a sentient being, empowered the Thana-daemons, but to no avail. Torn apart like so many other foes before them, only a pile of cloth remained. While catching their breath, Khan realized the construction of this place seems highly soundproof, implying sneaking could be the way to go. Zavid found a black sapphire within the robes of the Thana-daemons. Being unable to speak directly to the soul therein, the Umbromancer took a different route, speaking to the stone itself. The precious gem was all too eager to speak to another of what it knew. Dubbing it Saphiel, Zavid sussed out that it most likely contained the soul of an angel, which he would attempt to free at a later time. Saphiel warned Lux Et Umbra that the creatures who carried it would avoid certain parts of the dungeon, but it did not know why. Not understanding a clear warning of danger when they hear one, Lux Et Umbra marched headlong directly towards Saphiel warned against going. However, still paranoid as always, Zavid cast a scrying eye to scout ahead, a most fortuitous choice. The eye came upon what it appeared to be a small maze. Rounding its way within, Zavid's true-seeing magic gave away several traps, swinging blades, buff-disrupting runes, and a torture daemon lying in wait for an ambush. Ever sneaky, Khan led the way through the maze and around the obstacles to a hallucinatory wall spotted by Zavid. Leading to a small jail area, more questions arose. Through Dany's telepathic powers and promises of cupcakes, they learned they had found not only the puppet petitioner who would be forced to replace Eopol, but also First Emperor Taldaris. Dany discovered the third in command of the Lost Silhouette, Thousand Names, had set a trap for them. Yet a double trap was sprung. Going invisible, Rhys backed up Rat Max Khan as she snuck between the prison bars to unlock Taldaris' chains. The inevitable was only too happy to smash the faces of his captors. While making quick work of Thousand Names, the strange alien-like Yithian, who had introduced herself as Alzem, the former tiefling, telepathically mind-swapped herself with an enemy Axiomite. With Taldaris and Alzem in lockstep behind, Lux Et Umbra's morale was soaring. That is, until Zavid's necromancer's visage began to tingle. Within a torture chamber, strapped to a table, surrounded by undead Axiomites, was Wasilka the Fantabulous, Khan's childhood friend and fellow circus performer. Yet Zavid could tell these wretched fiends had changed their friend Wasilka into an undead ghast. Blood boiling, fur standing on end, Conrad Solo begins to see red. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 19. 100th episode spectacular! Bow, 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 bow. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had made their way deeper into the lost silhouette, Zavid, having spotted Khan's childhood friend Wasilka the Fantabulous strapped to a table, sprang into action. Using shadowy transposition magics, Zavid freed Wasilka from her bonds and threw Khan into the fray. Unfortunately, their timing was too late, as Wasilka had been transformed into an undead ghast by the Axiomite Grave Knights who had kidnapped her just hours prior. Dispatching the torturers proved a trivial task for Lux Et Umbra, especially with their new allies, Alzem and Taldaris, the First Emperor. Once the adrenaline had subsided, Khan began to weep for Wasilka. However, the ever-cheerful halfling gave her a hug and words of encouragement from across the room. Shocking Lux Et Umbra, and even Wasilka herself, a tiny voice came from Wasilka's puppet, Charlie. Zavid was quick to realize that the Grave Knights had not completed their conversion of Wasilka. Her soul had been split, half placed within Charlie, half remained. As Khan and Wasilka the Ghast-tastic reassured one another, Zavid noticed a hallucinatory wall which had been previously blocked by Arwen's massive flaming body. Ever the prankster, Rhys commanded the power of purple orcs to become invisible and follow behind Zavid. Behind a velvet curtain sat a large, strange, aberrant creature covered in hundreds of eyes, Hamalkai, the Hyakume. Second in command of the Lost Silhouette, Hamalkai had been spying on Lux Et Umbra since the moment they had arrived in Axis. Knowing that Nyarlathotep had control over Klakosik the Naga, Zavid acted quickly by destroying the magical mental hold upon Hamalkai. Though confused at first, Hamilkai quickly regained her faculties and handed over dire information. It seems that the secret shade has summoned forth the Herald of Norgorber, the stabbing beast, for reasons unknown to Hamilkai. Further in still, behind another illusory wall, Lux Et Umbra found a comfortable break room. Hallucinatory masonry abounds, as Zavid squeezed himself into a tight corridor leading to the private chamber of the secret shade itself. Upon a table were not only stacks of paper detailing the information gathered by Hamilkai's spying eyes, but also a contract. Written in ever-burning blood, the secret shade has agreed to assassinate petitioners Eopal and Imaro and First Emperor Taldaris in exchange for information. The right hand of Norgorber, the secret shade was his rival in life. When Norgorber passed the test of the Star Stone and ascended to godhood, he raised up his rival, but erased all traces of who the secret shade was. As such, the secret shade struck a deal with Shax, demon lord of murder. 3 lives for information on 1. It is clear the shade does not understand the potential cosmic repercussions of not allowing petitioners Eopal to vote on Axis military mobilization, but perhaps Lux Et Umbra could convince it they are more capable than Shax. As he is wont to do, Rhys became bored of the theologic chit-chat and snuck away. In a further room, he found a large winged creature strapped to a gurney, surrounded by bizarre, ill-formed creatures holding a book. The walls covered in advanced mathematics he couldn't understand. Rhys waved Khan over. Listening for but a moment, and focusing her genius, the hyper-advanced, chaotic mathematics, not hailing from this reality, caused incredible mental pain in the brilliant rat. Hopefully, this won't be on the final. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 20, The Herald of Norgorber. Last time, Lux Et Umbra found a mathematical mystery. As Khan walked into a strange operating room, covered floor to ceiling in chaotic mathematics from another realm, her brilliant brain was blasted by illogical math. As she screamed in pain, Khan grabbed the attention of 4 amalgamites, bizarre contorted creatures, the unfortunate side effect of unskilled wizards attempting the teleport spell. Making quick work of the malformed casters, Lux Et Umbra set their eyes upon the chiseled physique of Pavarish 19, an inevitable centaur strapped to a gurney. Through teamwork and clever crafting, Zavid and Khan were able to not only repair Pavarish 19 enough to regain consciousness, but also built him a pair of new arms to replace the ones surgically removed by the amalgamites. As the Inevitable's faculties returned to him, a great amount of detail was revealed about the Inevitables. Most of those details were spotted by Rhys and Danny in between wiping away their drool. Inevitables begin as mortals, but convert themselves to the lawful constructs by discovering mathematical secrets of the universe and carve them into their own bodies. As such, so too can the math be corrupted. Every equation upon his body defaced, Pavarish 19 realized his corruption would act like a virus, infecting all Inevitables in the realm of Axis. Insistent on finding an alchemical cure, Lux Et Umbra pressed onwards. Avoiding a trap pointed out by Hamilkai, Zavid chose a different path south into what appeared to be a conference room. 2 Axiomite Grave Knights had a contract devil cornered, and a powerful Fae was shouting about unfulfilled contracts nearby. Silent as the grave, Zavid signaled for his compatriots to spring a surprise trap to help the devil. Throwing herself into the fray perhaps a little too zealously, Khan took an absolute beating, yet still came out covered in mostly the blood of everyone else in the room. Introducing herself as Phlegomi, the contract devil was ever grateful and offered future aid if needed as she disappeared in a gout of flame. Beyond a heavy door was a frigid room 4 stories tall. A dozen or more finely dressed people's bodies were hanged from hooks by their shoulders. Immediately bargaining from their freedom, they soon revealed they were all petitioners of Axis, kidnapped by those here in the Lost Silhouette. The forces of the secret shade would remove unwanted information from the minds of those they interrogated, magically tattoo them onto those stored petitioners, then release them to their death into the trapped maze within. Lux Et Umbra quickly removed the petitioners as Hamilkai rushed them out to the surface. Further beyond a great hallway were several smaller rooms, so the ultimate strategy was enacted. Split the party! Zavid discovered an alchemy lab run by Karumzek's autonomous spider-like consects programmed to craft alchemical concoctions. Rhys and Danny discovered the private chambers of a strange 4-legged brain creature known as an intellect devourer. Reading its mind and wading through the cacophony of voices stored within, Danny discovered the secret to disabling the Karumzek spiders in addition to a powerful wand of trickery. As the Mission Impossible music played, Khan rat-maxed and tumbled over the beakers and Bunsen burners to disable and reprogram the alchemy bots. In the process, she also discovered what they were working on, a powerful serum of truth. Pushing on to find the putty to help Pavarish 19, Zavid opened the door upon another laboratory. Humid and dank, a massive mound of slime mold sits upon a table, massive tendrils reaching over to two bodies beside as the spider bots silently tinker. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 21, Rolling on the River. Last time, Lux Et Umbra discovered a frightening fungal foe in the lost silhouette. Atop an alchemy table sat a massive glob of slime mold. Tendrils reached out, grasping the barely living bodies on either side of it. Transferring fluids and humors back forth not only nourished the mold's body, but also a primitive mind. With the coming alignment of Castrovel the Green, fungi and other decomposers will go into overdrive, metabolizing far more organic material than they need. Through Danny's druidic ability to speak with plants and fungus, Lux Et Umbra was able to determine that the slime mold had been given a bloodlust and a hunger for battle. Needing advice on how to handle the situation, Zavid contacted this one, a friendly hive mind conglomeration of mushrooms back home in Etrin's Folly. This one immediately informed Lux Et Umbra to burn down every last spore, as this bloodthirsty fungus cannot be allowed to enter the material plane. Rhys and Danny jumped to work, setting ablaze the alchemy lab, but not before Khan had swiped the Norgorberite alchemy formulae for herself. Backtracking for but a moment, Zavid and Rhys entered into the bedroom of Nibs, the worm who walks druid. Within were dozens of terraria filled with wriggling, writhing insects, arachnids, and worms, much to Rhys's horror. A moment later, Rhys spotted a cloak among the pile of clothes. At first, it appeared to be a powerful robe of eyes. However, Khan's familiar pipette sniffed out the curse upon the cloak. Stuffing away their new robe of vermin into a bag of holding, Zavid and Khan began planning which enemy to give the robe to later. Further in the lost silhouette, beyond a secret hallucinatory wall, sat a beautiful garden. Within were dozens of small bonsai trees, each with a picture of an urban landscape behind them. The Hyakume named Hamalkai had said these were a slow but nearly untraceable communications network. Pruning the bonsais here would reflect a twin tree in a far-off plane, allowing devious messages and plans to be shared. Within the garden was another spider-bot alchemist, easily deactivated by Rhys, and a hungry viperbine, which is Danny's subdued with her Disney princess powers. Upon the wall hung a shiny dawn silver shield, reflecting incoming sunlight onto all the plants within. Using her brilliant arcane know-how, Khan managed to finagle the shield off of the wall. Rhys was more than happy to try it on for size. Marching one by one down the spiral stairs, Lux Et Umbra came to an empty room. Rhys, having spotted Taldaris' mithril halberd, walked with the inevitable across the room as the rest descended. As he rounded the last steps, Zavid, with his true-seeing magic, stopped dead in his tracks as the stabbing beast of Norgorber jabbed its stinger into Rhys's back. Shadows flung themselves from the walls in a vicious attack as corrupted inevitables swung their swords, preaching their corrupted mathematics. As magical darkness filled the room, Zavid barely managed to spot the secret shade, right hand of Norgorber, nearing Taldaris to fulfill his assassination contract. Lux Et Umbra and their many newfound allies from within the lost silhouette dog-piled onto the stabbing beast, forcing it to show its true form, a massive black scorpion dripping in acidic poison. While the Herald of Norgorber was distracted, Zavid raised his Jezatiel staff, Memento Mori, absorbing the secret shade within the Axiotite crystal prison. The darkness of the room lifted instantly, giving Rhys the chance he needed to drive his longsword through the skull of the stabbing beast. After the heat of battle subsided, Khan found a heavy brass belt with a carved fist on the buckle. Realizing it as a belt of giant strength, Zavid quickly threw it around his waist, increasing his strength several times over. As Lux Et Umbra were discussing next steps, a magical image appeared before them. Rhys realized it was an intercepted sending spell. Many of the enemy's secrets were revealed, their assassination plans on Galarian, which led to the armies of Axis not participating in the coming Conjunction War. Knowing that Lux Et Umbra must quickly get to the plane of Abaddon, Taldaris volunteered to return to Galarian to protect Grand Princess Eutropia, Prince Davian III, and Taldagas. Knowing a bargaining chip when he sees one, Zavid released the secret shade from Memento Mori and forced it to contact Norgorber, its master. Amused by his servant's utter failure, Norgorber was pleased Lux Et Umbra had cleared his dungeon of Nyarlatho Teppan influence. As a reward, Norgorber opened a portal to the River Styx and the outer sphere beyond. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 22. Abaddon all hope, ye who enter here. Thank you. Last time, Lux Et Umbra arrived at the River Styx. Bruised and beaten, a long rest was just what the cleric ordered, so Danny conjured forth a resplendent manor within a private demiplane. Leaving Pipette in charge of steering the boat, everyone else piled inside the magical abode. Within were every accommodation one could wish for while traveling: a bath, pool table, fully stocked kitchen, reading area, even an archery range. Con passed out on the couch without so much as removing her cloak. Rhys spent the evening scrubbing off the blood of various monsters, while Zavid magically blocked himself off from any outside annoyances. In the morning, Rhys was awake uncharacteristically early and helped Danny prepare a hearty breakfast for everyone. Zavid and Con arose well-rested, both realizing that sleeping within the demiplane that is Danny's resplendent manor negated the mind-altering effects of Triaxis the Wanderer and Aposte the Messenger. As Lux Et Umbra ate, Pipette entered the kitchen requesting help topside as the Styx was becoming choppy. No sooner had they opened the hatch than a massive wave of souls crashed into them, capsizing the tiny boat. All went black for a moment. Each member of Lux Et Umbra slowly came to in their own time, but not where they had left it. Long in the past, everyone relived traumatic moments that helped to shape them into the heroes they are fated to be. Rhys opened his eyes to find himself in Castle Druma, clinging to the side of the western tower, high above the cobblestones below. Remembering it was the birthday of his best friend, Princess Dany Arion, he continued to climb. Within the frilly pink bedroom, Rhys used his secret knock and let himself in. Dany was waiting for him, but seemed off. Touching her shoulder revealed the princess to be an illusion, but it was too late, as Grand Vizier Archibald Baldebard stood behind Rhys, flanked by a cadre of royal guards. Dragged to the throne room of King Arion, Jonathan Arion, Rhys was thrown to the floor. Decrepit, bent, and unnaturally long-lived, King Arion allowed Rhys to speak in his own defense, but the trial was a show. Barely visible spirits whispered to the sickly king, causing him to stay the executioner's axe and gang-press the sly elf into military service in a far-off land. As Con's vision returned to her, she stood outside the big top on the night of her first solo performance in the circus. Her parents, Con and Frankie Rizzolo, couldn't be more proud, giving her a pep talk to ease her nerves. Near the center rings, every performer was practicing their acts, so Con began hers one more time before the lights went down. Though she fell and landed hard in the dirt, Con's favorite uncle, Little Big Tony, offered a helping hand, a goofy laugh, and a honk of the nose of encouragement. As Uncle Little Big Tony unicycled away, unseen spirits whispered to Mr. Tickles, the trained anaconda, who immediately lashed out and began to eat the juggling clown. The circus folk panicked and tried to free him, but could only watch as Uncle Little Big Tony's hand slipped from Con's grip and he slid down the snake's throat. Opening her eyes, Dany found herself on the dirt road through the forest south of Druma. Her handmaiden Abby Barrelfloater had helped her escape the castle and her imprisonment within the western tower. Saying what they thought would be their last goodbyes, Dany magically changed Abby's appearance to match her own and darted into the forest. After hours of wandering, Dany came into a peaceful clearing with several animals. From across the way, she spotted spirits attempting to attack a baby bear, so Dany intervened with magic she had only just learned. The spirits quickly turned on the elf princess, but the forest critters leapt into action, banishing the spirits back whence they came. Once the fight subsided, Dany began to cry as a giant honey badger and falcon consoled her, and a mama bear and cub offered a warm cave to sleep. Zavid's eyes snapped open to the sound of screaming. Standing within the antechamber of gnawing at his cult's compound, the sound of gnashing ghoul teeth nearly drowned out the shrieks. Held aloft by the neck was Zavid's first friend Giza. They only had but a moment of eye contact before the Shadow Council of Cabriri devoured Giza alive. Zavid ran until his veins pumped acid, until at last he arrived at the meeting location. Plick was there, but so was Renshak, unconscious. Zavid could only stand not gawking in his guilt over the deaths he had caused, as Renshak rose to attack Plick. Suspiciously, at that same moment, several creatures rushed to Zavid's aid, freeing Plick. However, Zavid realized this was wrong. This is not what truly transpired that day. Plick was not saved. No cavalry arrived. Zavid's guilt was never lifted. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 23, Up a Creek. Last time, Lux Et Umbra breached the surface of the river Styx. Having fallen in when their boat capsized, each suffered vivid hallucinations of past traumatic events in their lives. Flailing and gasping for breath, Zavid found himself wrapped up inside a fishing net cast from the right bank of the river. Con's longtime friend Wasilka the Gastastic pulled her from the clawing, moaning souls, seemingly unaffected by the memory-warping magics of this realm. Thankfully, Ares and Arwen were poised and ready to snatch and doggy-paddle both Dany and Rhys to safety. Once everyone had caught their breath, Zavid looked to those who had lassoed him out of the Soul Rapids. Three of the most unlikely creatures imaginable stood before Lux Et Umbra, seemingly united in friendship. A demon, a daemon, and a devil. Introducing themselves as Pappy Scratch, Shisk Longcast, and Razmina, respectively, they explained that the river folk of the outer sphere lived together in peace. However, the further from the Styx one strays, the less true this becomes. Zavid was a bit starstruck at meeting Pappy Scratch, the fearsome Baylor of legend, known in his prime as Mr. Scratch, even going so far as to allow Zavid to hold Old Stinger, a fiery whip braided with the mane hair of 1,000 unicorns. After a hearty laugh and a parting gift, Lux Et Umbra made their way back into their boat and down the river Styx once more. As the flow rate quickened, not even with Rhys's help could Zavid keep the canoe on course, slamming into the debris of a once mighty stone bridge. Calling upon the ghoulish magics of Cabriri's triple jump, Rhys and Zavid carried the boat across the river leap by leap. Con and Wasilka called upon their circus acrobatic training, making it safely across. Nearly losing her footing, Dany was saved last moment by Rhys's quick reflexes. Finally, at a stop, Lux Et Umbra was confronted with a massive door of bronze and mithril, in front of which floated a green crystal, siphoning souls from the Styx. Con's breath was stolen from her chest as she realized this was no ordinary crystal, but a philosopher's soul stone. Long thought to be nothing more than conjecture and myth, here was the proof of its existence, and its power. Putting two and two together, Zavid realized that the forces of Urgathoa are stealing souls from the other realms to quickly gestate new and powerful daemons. Having decided to destroy the Soul Stone, Lux Et Umbra focuses their strikes all at once, shattering it. With a flash of light, a hideous Puro demon, a war daemon, stood roaring, body pierced by many weapons. Fierce battle ensued. Dany was nearly cut in half by a whirling magic blade summoned forth by the screeching daemon. However, her own healing powers proved superior. Though he was blasted at point blank with a chain lightning spell, Rhys stood his ground, thankful he had recently created lightning-resistant armor for himself. While dealing with a tentacled, crab-like daemon of his own, Zavid was stabbed in the shoulder by a spear hurled from within the war daemon's body. Upon returning to its wielder, the spear pierced Con as well, but this did not stop her from slicing its throat clean open, ending its short life. After the battle subsided, Lux Et Umbra began to heal up and discuss their next steps. The weapons pierced into the daemon's body looked strange to Zavid, being reflectant as dawn silver, but a smoky black in color. This realm holds many surprises, for Con had heard whispers of such a material, dark silver. This realization caused Con to notice her spear wound had not fully healed, even though Zavid's had. A sinking feeling came over the Ahsoki. Her newly acquired Nephilim blood made this weapon cause her greater harm. Powerful enough to harm any outsider, this metal can only be crafted while steeped in pure, homegrown, unfiltered, non-GMO, farm-to-table evil. Then Zavid said the one thing nobody wanted to hear. If all of this was left here, unguarded, that must mean that there are many, many more. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 24, Without a Paddle. Last time, Lux Et Umbra stood before the doors of Abaddon. Having braved the treacherous Styx and slain a mighty war daemon, it was at last time to enter the realm of Urgathoa. Seeing neither keyhole nor handle, it seemed traditional lock-picking methods were right out. Zavid, remembering the words of Shisk Longcast, realized that only a daemon could open the door to Abaddon, so using the dark magics of Cabriri, morphed himself. Rotting flesh sloughed off his body as a horse's skull protruded from his face. Zavid ran a claw down the cold metal. No sooner did the gateway open than souls once more began to flow from the Styx to their final resting place within Abaddon. Quickly making their way through, Lux Et Umbra was accosted by a foul stench. A putrid bog of stagnant water spread as far as the eye could see before them. Spotting a rowboat towing more of the Philosopher's Soul Stones from outside, Con and Rhys hid themselves and began to skulk about. His necromancy being attuned as it is, Zavid sensed a skeleton wearing a crown of ever-weeping blood. With confidence and a magical disguise, the Umbramancer stepped forward, magically dominating the mind of the Blood Shroud and gleaning useful information. As they mentally prepared themselves for what was to come, Rhys noticed Dany looking a bit peaked. It didn't take Zavid long to realize that Dany, Goody Two-Shoes, faithful to the goddess Shelyn, was being drained while within the pure evil land of Abaddon. Acting quickly, Lux Et Umbra formed an audacious plan. Beseech the Midnight Lord Zon Kuthon, lawful evil brother of Shelyn, for aid. As Prince of Pain, Zon Kuthon was only too delighted to hear their call. With a sharp shivering chill, Queen Dany Arion's hair morphed from platinum blonde to midnight pitch. Her vitality returned, our heroes absconded deeper into the bayou with the Blood Shroud's boat and soul-storing crystals in tow. Luckily, their new undead friend happens to have a map of Abaddon showing the militarily fortified areas to avoid. As the boat lazily floated downriver, Khan noticed a shocking sight: the faces of angelic spirits beneath the water, seemingly drowning while pounding upon the surface in desperation. Realizing this was the mythical mire of broken angels, a plan was hatched. Dip a philosopher's soul stone into the river to coax out a group of pissed-off angel spirits. During the commotion, one of the locals, a Gripply named Rivermire Jellystone, came upon Lux Et Umbra. After a short introduction, Rivermire revealed he and his people were diametrically opposed to Shax and his machinations due to his poisonings of the waters. Rivermire agreed to take Lux Et Umbra to the village of Lilypond, one of the only safe havens nearby, as the Daemons do not see the Gripply as a threat. Within Lilypond, Lux Et Umbra explained to their leader, Grublord Kermot the Frog, Hemoth, their intention to kill Shax. Kermot was pleased and offered to send his mightiest warrior, Sir Hop, Knight of Lilypond, to aid in this endeavor. After a quick blessing from Many Voices One, Lilypond's infestation-cursed divination oracle, Lux Et Umbra set off into the marshes. It wasn't long until the source of the problem was found. Pollution and runoff from the Rune Forge was gathering in a vast pool. In an attempt to clear the way, Reese lobbed a flaming arrow at a blob of poisonous sludge, setting it ablaze. As it melted, the goop formed into a shimmering, oil-slick, prismatic ooze, spawning carnivorous blobs in its wake. Lux Et Umbra attacked with vicious precision and clever tactics, ultimately prevailing over the pernicious, polluted pests. Can our heroes stop Shax from choking all of Abaddon with toxic waste? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 25, Shax the Blood Marquis. Last time, Lux Et Umbra cleaned the ooze off themselves. Having slain the sentient pollution which had gathered at Sludge Landing, they began to trace the source. It did not take long to track it back to the Rune Forge, high above the bog. Rest was needed, however, so Dani once more summoned her magical mansion, but offered a quick prayer to Zon Kuthan before entering. In the morning, Zavid gave Wasilka a much-needed lesson on ghouls, ghasts, and Cabriri. Excited to have someone with whom to finally share the secrets of undeath, she listened intently while devouring the blood sausages cooked by Dani, a rare meaty treat from the former staunch vegetarian. Reese and Khan were loath to leave their warm sleeping spots by the hearth, but adventurers doesn't nap. After breakfast, Dani teamed up with Pipette and Zavid to determine exactly where Shax is located, teleporting the entire group to a nearby location. The ground thumped rhythmically beneath their feet, like blood through a massive creature. Zavid took on the disguise of a leucodaemon, leading the way with Wasilka and the Blood Shroud, the rest hiding among the arterial vines along the cliffside. Skulking within the labyrinthine pipe structure were three undead creatures Zavid figured to be Lengasts imbued with the power of the Babau demon. The calling card of Shax. Convincing the Ghasts to abandon what is clearly a losing incoming war, Lux Et Umbra climbed higher, following the sounds of pumping fluids. At the cliff's apex was a massive pool of what appeared to be blood, gushing from deep in the ground below. Above the roiling pond floated 5 vampires, faces covered by matted, blood-soaked hair. Sister-wives to Nyarlathotep all, the women attacked with their freshly disgorged blood-ooze minions in tow. Reese peppered the oozes with icy arrows, slowing them down and causing them to scab up. Utilizing her namesake, Khan the Bloody swam through the pool of blood, camouflaging her white fur for a lethal dark silver dagger through the vampire's spine, causing it to explode in an outlandish spray of blood. Though Dani and Ares took a monstrous beating, her smart tactics and powerful healing magic were more than enough to keep them in the fight. Fighting for his homeland, Sir Hop of Lilypond showed his mettle and fearlessness in the face of danger. Zavid dueled a wife of Nyarlathotep with his newly acquired dark silver scorpion whip, holy weapon of Cabriri, as she danced around his strikes. Little did she know, it was only a distraction to give an opening to Wasilka the Gastastic to stick a sword through her chest, bursting her like a balloon of red syrup. It was not long before combat had subsided, with Lux Et Umbra standing on the field of victory. Bloody, beaten, and bruised, they healed themselves up and began to climb the rest of the way to the summit of the Rune Forge. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 26, Alaznist, Last Rune Lord of Wrath. Last time, Lux Et Umbra arrived at the peak of the arterial cliffs. Taking a brief rest to catch their breath and strategize, the Rune Forge could be seen below. Though the area was tightly guarded by the likes of pollution daemons and suicide demons, our heroes managed to find a well-hidden alcove in which to prepare. Zavid and Danny passed out buff spells while Reese passed around a thermos filled with mountain stew code red, courtesy of Gurkha. As they quickly milled about, one of the guard demons hovered within view. Thinking quickly, Danny disguised Zavid as a Luco demon just in the nick of time. As the suicide demon approached, Zavid convinced it that he had captured a group of mortals attempting to kill Lord Shax. Khan's inner actor truly shined as she gave the performance of a lifetime, convincing the creature to allow them to try. Either Shax would die and the demons would be free, or Lux Et Umbra would die upon Shax's blades like waves upon rocks. Seeing their window of opportunity, our heroes cast their last-minute blessings and flew down to the Runeforge. Too bright to look upon, the Runeforge was blasted by focused fires from the severed head of Elazinist, last Rune Lord of Wrath. Before our heroes stood the deadly six-armed Merilithi demons, Shax-spawn, and the eldest of their number, Varmirius. Standing at the right hand of the Blood Marquis was the masked vampire elf and first wife of Nyarlathotep, Flenshepsut, claws and fangs bared. Though their nerves were steeled, Lux Et Umbra could not help but fret for a moment at the awe-inspiring sight of the demigod Shax, demon lord of murder. But only for a moment. With lightning speed, Khan took to wing, sinking her new dark silver dagger deep into him, into a Merilith's flesh. A moment later, warping the fabric of reality around him with his titanic power, Shax pulled Khan next to him away from her allies. Staying out of sight and dodging every attack that came his way, Reese peppered Shax with arrows from a healthy distance. Serhop and Wasilka bounced around the battlefield like pinballs, using their ghastly leaps and gripply jumps harrying the snake-like demon warriors. Astride her massive fire leopard Arwen, Danny positioned her allies for success while Ares, the Baelor wolf, dueled a Shax spawn above a river of molten metal. Zavid flew atop Rottrot beside Khan, bolstering her courage and her health by summoning a herald of Cabriri. As Shax and his monstrous kin attacked with reckless abandon, the Runeforge began to fall apart around everyone. Pipes burst into steam, chains snapped and swung across the battlefield, and toxic waste erupted across the floor, but Lux Et Umbra fought on. With every dagger and spell landed on our heroes, Cabriri's presence punished Shax for his hubris. In his desperation, the Blood Marquis sacrificed his own daughter, Varmirius, to Urgathoa in exchange for a surge of power. As the eldest Marilith immolated, her sisters screamed in grief, whirling their many weapons with bloodlust. Yet the might of Ares, Arwen, Serhop, and Wasilka was enough to lay them all low. As Lux Et Umbra drew ever closer to the Demon Lord, Shax was forced to take extreme measures. Hubris, it would seem, knows no boundary, as the demigod attempted to cast a spell reserved only for true deities, an 11th rank paralyzation. Lux Et Umbra was held stiffly in place, despite the vein-popping efforts of Zavid. Seeing her one and only chance, Flenshepsut, first wife of Nyarlathotep, sank her teeth into the neck of Queen Dany Arion and began to drink deeply. Her stomach distended with liters of royal blood, inside of which lies the key to Rovagug's prison. In a flash, the vampire was gone, and Danny fell limp to the ground, entirely drained of blood. The strain of casting a deific spell was too much for Shax to handle, as a moment later his body gave out and could not move for several moments, dropping the magics holding Lux Et Umbra in place. In a furious, brutal flurry, our heroes pounced. Wanting a field test of his new staff, Memento Mori, Zavid managed to rip the very shadow from Shax's body, imprisoning it within a powerful gemstone. As is her namesake, Khan the Bloody Rizzolo stabbed out Shax's eye, brought him to the ground, and basked in the glorious arterial shower of demigod blood. Their celebration was short-lived, however, as Reese sprinted over to Danny's bloodless body. Beseeching the powers of Pharasma and Baba Yaga, Zavid wrenched her soul from the boneyard, forcing it back down. As Danny's eyes opened, Lux Et Umbra was relieved, but a bit taken aback by her new vampiric fangs. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 27, Out of the Frying Pan. Last time, Lux Et Umbra took a breath. Even having killed Shax the Blood Marquis, Demon Lord of Murder, not all was yet right with the world. Before making her escape, Flenshepsut, first wife of Nyarlathotep, had taken advantage of Shax's deific paralyzation spell by swooping in and draining Queen Dany of all her blood. After the adrenaline of battle, and seeing their friend die only to rise once more as a vampire had mostly subsided, some real talk was had. Zavid bluntly explained the basics of vampirism to Dany, as her new form will take some getting used to. Ever the bestie, Reese played on Danny's humor to lighten the mood for all. As the secrets of undeath were being discussed, Khan's Geiger counter began to click. Sneaking away to investigate, it soon became clear that whatever Shaxx was creating at the Rune Forge emits a vast amount of energy. In the brief moment she stood before the glowing orb, Khan received a burn as though she were at the beach at high noon. Upon the ground, Khan found a massive necklace the Blood Marquis used as an abjurative ward against the fire beams emitting from the head of Elazinist, last Rune Lord of Wrath. Throwing it around her waist, she then spotted a large eyeball which she herself had plucked from the head of Shaxx. Upon touching the eye, she felt the overwhelming urge to pop out her own eye and replace it with this demonic artifact. As she contemplated mutilating herself, Zaveid walked up to heal Khan. Recognizing something was amiss, Zaveid asked questions and touched the eye himself. Awash with the same invasive thought, Zaveid called over Reese and Danny for help. Queen Arion quickly needed to walk away as the radiative power of the orb made her vampire body react quite negatively. Always quick to sacrifice for the cause, Sir Hop donated a Capri Sun's worth of blood to help nourish Danny, while Wasilka chatted about the undead secrets she'd learned from Cabriri. Recognizing when he needs more information, Zaveid beseeched Cabriri for aid in asking the Shadow of Shaxx questions from within his own staff. The lights dimmed, granting this boon, as Zaveid questioned the Demon Lord of Murder, gaining the knowledge he sought. Realizing the Eye of Shaxx is only a curse to those who are pure of heart, a wicked smile crossed the face of Lao Shupo's chosen Nephilim, Khan Rizzolo. Before Zaveid could even ask, Reese was scrubbed up and ready to help with some risky surgery. As swift with a scalpel as Khan is with a gladius, Zaveid removed her eyeball, having Reese preserve it in a jar. The lack of blood allowed Danny to watch with interest instead of hunger, as Khan shoved the Eye of Shaxx in her socket. Seeing colors she'd never seen before, and perceiving through the eyes of her familiar pipette, Khan could only chuckle at the wave of power. Looking around, Reese stumbled upon a cache of high-quality dark silver weapons and enough deific runes to outfit the entire party, with some left over. At last, Lux Et Umbra put their heads together to attempt to determine Shaxx's goal. What was he creating at the Rune Forge? The secret lay in an obscure recipe of Khan's, Blightburn resin. Having received the same skin burn here as when she first crafted Blightburn, the clever alchemist realized Shaxx had formed a huge sphere of pure enriched uranium. The Blood Marquis was building a bomb with the destructive power to level cities. A plan was quickly hatched. Pipette would absorb the secrets of Shaxx's bomb and store it within her godlike memories for safekeeping. In a blur of montage-like construction, Lux Et Umbra all worked together using the power of the Rune Forge to construct a housing for the Extinction Core. It will be attached to the Mole Mech as a power source, for what could be more poetic than using the Dread Cabal's own weapon against them? Before leaving the forge, Zaveid took the head of Elazinist, last Rune Lord of Wrath, and placed her within a jar of magical preservation. Ever the cartographer, Danny teleported all of Lux Et Umbra closer to Urgathoa's Palace of Bloodrot at the boiling lake of Balashek's crater. Their bones tired, their muscles aching, their magic spent, Lux Et Umbra laid down for a well-earned rest within the Queen's resplendent mansion. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 28, and Into the Fight. Last time, Lux Et Umbra rested and planned. Within Queen Danny's resplendent manor spell, they were cut off from outside divine ears. Taking advantage of the rare moment of privacy, Zaveid at last revealed his true plans to his teammates, to capture the shadow of Urgathoa within his staff, Memento Mori. With this power, the Umbromancer plans to raise Lux Et Umbra up as demigods. Swearing themselves to secrecy, our heroes slept soundly. In the morning, battle faces on, Lux Et Umbra walked outside to Balashek's crater within the realm of Abaddon. Steam roiled from the boiling lake deep underground, around which lumbered angry steam elementals. Using her inventor's skills, Khan quickly threw together the Schlorper, patent pending, from spare parts in her bag. Though not a quiet machine, it was effective, as it absorbed an elemental fully within its containment vessel. Diving into combat, Danny called out that these creatures hated the cold, a weakness gleefully exploited by Reese and his icy arrows. The steam elementals vanquished, Zaveid began casting several abjurative spells to protect everyone from the scalding swim ahead. Down the caves they made their way, until the boiling water changed quickly to filthy, tepid green sludge. They had found the sewers beneath Palace Bloodrot, Urgathoa's home. Looking around cautiously, Khan and Zaveid traversed a tiny winding tunnel to discover several bodies, all drained of blood near the main drainage area. Not able to fit through the rat tunnel, Reese, Danny, and Wasilka went north, finding a suspiciously rustling trash pile. Taking the opportunity to practice his magic, Reese launched the garbage away, leaving only a frightened garbage daemon standing in the corner. Ever the animal lover, Danny offered the creature some cheese, and in turn it introduced itself as Mumbles. Though initially terrified of Danny's vampiric fangs, she and Reese were able to convince the gremlin-like Mumbles that she was not a threat. Ever the recycler, Zavid raised the skeletons of the murdered elves within the sewer, giving them a chance at revenge. Revealing a secret path blocked off by fallen rubble, Mumbles led the way through the large drainage. Zavid could sense undead ahead. A massive hollow serpent, a cast-off skin from some massive snake, given the breath of unlife to act as guardian for Urgathoa's home. On a higher perch stood a polluted Shax, absent-mindedly staring into the middle distance. Forcing the hollow serpent under his thrall, Zavid brought his Trojan horse closer for all of Lux Et Umbra to enter. As Mike Celium and the Corpse Commandos army-crawled under the fetid water closer to their prey, the massive undead snakeskin slithered closer. A few insults were spit before Khan, Reese, and Wasilka leapt into action, killing the daemon. Up another set of stairs, another barred grate. With little issue, Khan popped the lock into a dank, humid room. In the center was a massive pile of loamy soil from which sprouted a sapling. Danny felt a connection to this tree immediately, recognizing it as a plasma fruit tree. The only sustenance option for vampires that does not require feeding on the living. Plasma fruit is a rare plant indeed. Before moving deeper into Urgathoa's palace, Danny decided to take a quick fruit snack break to slake her vampiric hunger. For now. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 29, Tessariel the Lost. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had broken into Bloodrot, the palace of Urgathoa. Despite an unexplainable curse of silence falling over the entire party, our heroes pressed on. The dank, humid air was heavy and filled with scents of loamy soil and copper. Being home to the goddess of undeath herself, Palace Bloodrot flooded Zavid's senses with the knowledge that there are undead everywhere. Specifically, a particularly powerful creature was behind a nearby door, prompting the Umbramancer to conjure forth his magical spying eye. Sitting comfortably upon a luxurious chaise lounge was a beautiful pale vampire wearing flowing silk robes. Zavid, ever the learned necromancer, immediately recognized her to be a Jiangshi lord, a powerful vampire from the far-off lands of Tianxia. On the floor next to the couch, chained to the wall, was a filthy, terrified elf woman covered head to toe in thousands of puncture scars. Two plans were quickly hatched. Danny and Zavid would attempt to persuade the vampiress to turn on Urgathoa. Failing that, Khan, Reese, and Wasilka would engage in knife diplomacy. Entering the room with a royal air, the Queen of Druma gave an admirable performance as a monarchical emissary from the land of Nex on Galarian. Having introduced herself as Yukiko, Minister of Tumult, the right hand of Urgathoa, the Jiangshi vampire lord was clearly suspicious of the Queen's motives. Throwing her shackled elf, whom she referred to as Cocktail, to the floor at Danny's feet, Minister Yukiko insisted Danny have a drink. Knowing what she had to do, as her fangs sank deep into Cocktail's neck, Danny whispered an apology to the scarred and weak woman. The first blood drank ever straight from a living creature invigorated Danny, and was enough to convince the minister to calm herself for the moment. Prodding her for information, Zavid and Danny were unable to suss out much in the way of Urgathoa's plans, even with how forward Yukiko had become. Yet her confidence in herself and her mistress Urgathoa would ultimately be her downfall. Unwilling to assist Lux Et Umbra in their planned deicide, Minister Yukiko attacked, draining Danny of precious chi, life energy contained even within undead creatures. Plan A having failed, Reese, Khan, and Wasilka popped the top on Plan B. Glorious, stabby Plan B. Were she prepared, with her entire retinue at tow, Yukiko would have proven formidable, but the minister was caught fully unawares, in her bathrobe, drunkenly sipping her cocktail. Having a powerful necromancer who knew the main weakness of Jiangshi vampires as the magical fulu upon their brow proved most helpful. As Reese invisibly swiped the hanging scroll from Yukiko's head, Khan ended her unlife in a whirl of blades. Though she was extremely thankful, the shackled elf woman was terrified and could not remember her name. Only the name she'd been referred to as long as she could recall. Cocktail. Zavid's clerical magics helped with the exhaustion of being fed on for so long, but could not aid with her memories. However, Danny's magic could. Perfecting telepathy long ago, Queen Daniela probed deeply into Cocktail's mind. Hundreds of years in this dank palace, thousands of vampires feeding upon her. Further and deeper, back in time, than flashes of memories. A failed experiment, a grand machine, an alien tree, an ambitious plan. But also a name. Tessariel. Recalling that name from his youth, Rhys explained how Tessariel was a cautionary tale to fledgling wizards to not reach too far with their magic. Tessariel the Lost was a fictional character, a metaphor such as the orc who cried wolf, or Pinocchio the little wooden gnome, or so Rhys thought. Yet here she sits, scarred and forgotten, on the cobbled stone floor of Urgathoa's palace. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 30, Palace of the Pallid Princess. Ooh, that looked... Last time, Lux Et Umbra took a slow look around the lowest levels of Urgathoa's Palace of Bloodrot. Having slain and captured the shadow of Minister of Tumult Yukiko, Lux Et Umbra moved on from her bedchambers. The freed elf Tessariel slowly had her memories return to her as all moved quietly through, warning of a room of trapped pressure plates. Easily performing acrobatic flips across the floor, Khan popped a lock with some cheering on from Rhys. A powerful arcane lock blocked their way further until Pipette and Khan worked together to disable the rune with the efficiency of a bomb squad. Taking the lead once more, Khan rat-maxed into the garden filled with pungent purple blooms, being tended to by a familiar Karumzek alchemist spider-bot. Though she disabled this bot in a flash, Khan hadn't noticed the pollen in the air and became paralyzed on the spot. Neither Danny nor Rhys recognized these flowers, but Zavid did. Ghoul blooms, flowers capable of paralyzing living creatures and slowly transforming them into a ghoul by the next midnight. Holding his breath, Zavid rushed in, dragging out Khan and the bot, but not before noticing a strange glow beyond a door. A strange jade chalice, carved with intertwining snakes, sat in a cloud of golden magical spores. The iconography upon the cup stumped Wasilka and Khan, having grown up in the circus, but Danny and Zavid were able to put their heads together and realize it was a dedication to Nalini Vati, the Serpent's Kiss, goddess of snakes, fertility, and sorcery. With Gork and Mork as his conduit, Zavid contacted Nalini Vati, who beseeched the Umbromancer to sever Urgathoa's hold upon her. Pulling with all his Cabriri-infused might, Zavid managed to remove the chalice from the spores, freeing the Queen of Nagas from Urgathoa's thrall. In the deepest parts of Yukiko's garden lay a royal basilisk nest, laden with cracked eggs. Never missing an opportunity to raise a beast from birth, Lux Et Umbra carefully sent the one viable egg, the Windseeker, via magic mailbox. Am I right or am I right? Where's
You're
the
right. Whatever.
I feel seen, that's for sure.
The bedchambers of Yukiko now fully explored, Lux Et Umbra took the magically revealed stairway up. Blocking their path was an enormous plagued giant zombie, snoring loudly upon a pile of broken rocks and sharp wooden poles. Stealth being one of their strong suits, the group decided to split up and creep silently past the sleeping guard. Rhys, Danny, Tessariel, and Wasilka discovered an arcane prison for a Venedaemon, a pact-forming daemon floating in stasis. By the logic of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, it was decided to free Urgathoa's prisoner. Rhys pulled out a fire arrow, into which Danny sang a minor key bardic enchantment. Scratching out the arcane sigil with the flaming arrow, eventually the daemon was freed. Confused at first, Kath Shaz the Unfaithful was only too eager to offer Lux Et Umbra his assistance in ruining Urgathoa's plans. Khan and Zavid discovered a letter written in Urgathoa's hand to Minister Yukiko, offering a tantalizingly vague look into her plans. Yukiko was to guard the planar lock upon Abaddon, while Light's Void, the shadow of Urgathoa herself, is to guard the throne of the Pallid Princess. Deeper into Bloodrot, behind a nondescript door unceremoniously unlocked by Khan, writhed a massive burning salamander, 30 feet head to tail. Remembering the strange dreams and musings of the salvage menders, small creatures who lived on a floating island of garbage in the ocean, Rhys realized this was their god, the Great Firemander. Lux Et Umbra looked at each other, nodding in agreement as to what needed to be done. Zavid conjured a link to the salvage manders so the faithful creatures could watch their god be freed of the bonds they saw within their dreams. Khan disabled the janky devices and chains, freeing the Great Firemander, who was truly grateful. In the rooms beyond, Lux Et Umbra disabled the sewer outflow, stopping the pouring of poisons into Lake Lilypond. At the northernmost section lie 3 odd rooms. Each seemed dedicated to a different powerful entity. A stained glass piece featuring Zura, she who savors flesh, the first vampire, a carved stone shrine to Diomazul, the serpent of 80 blades, and an enchanted sarcophagus containing the corpse of Kayanin, shepherd of last words. Zavid communicated with the slain psychopomp Kyanin, learning they had been sent by Pharasma to bring Urgathoa to stand judgment in the Boneyard, as she had evaded her fate by becoming the first undead. Kyanin was slain by Urgathoa, and kept here as only one of many such grisly trophies of death. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 31, The Family's Secret. Last time, Lux Et Umbra apparated to the second floor of Bloodrot Palace. Within the cramped teleportation room sat an open book and a massive iron key clearly to the front gate. Khan cut a hole in the glass case holding the key while Danny and Tessariel decrypted the travel log. It contained directions and magic rituals to gain passage to the Maelstrom, of mysterious and dangerously chaotic plane of existence. Stepping into a small hallway, Zavid found carved statues, one of which was of a Nosferatu vampire drooling blood into a bowl. Reese, having studied up on undeath the night before, was only too eager to help discern its meaning. Without a moment to spare, Zavid and Reese realized the statue was enchanted to paralyze living creatures who entered the hallway, but the blood would heal undead when drank. Beyond the hallway, in a map-filled room, sat a large armored grave knight. At first confused by Zavid's brazenness at entering without warning, Master Yerrick was quick to interrogate him. However, using secrets told by the shadow of Minister Yukiko trapped within his staff Memento Mori, Zavid was able to convince Yerrick of the truth. Urgathoa had betrayed her and all undead kind. The plan of the Pallid Princess is to usurp Pharasma to be the last deity left in this universe and the first of the next, abandoning this world and all in it to extinction and ruin. Angered and hurt, War Master Yerrick agreed to help Lux Et Umbra by clearing out masses of Urgathoa's defensive forces from the palace. The floors rumbled, then slowly silenced as the skeletal armies marched out the front gate. Splitting the party again for a moment, Danny, Reese, and Tessariel formed up Elf Team 3 to attempt to free a banshee being held prisoner above the war room. Within was the shimmering spirit of a lovely elven woman staring wistfully out a window over Bloodrot Swamp. Having spent a century locked away in a tower herself, Queen Danny was in the unique position of knowing precisely how this banshee must feel. Instead of coming at her with spell and sword, Danny walked to her with love and understanding. The elven spirit introduced herself as Veltel from the tragic love tale Xander and Veltel. Urgathoa had kidnapped Veltel from Pharasma's Boneyard, promising to reunite her with Xander if she would reveal the location of Nadiri, goddess of tragic love and suicide, and her palace of love eternal. Realizing her mistake, Veltel agreed to go with Lux Et Umbra to aid in the fight. On the floor below, Zavid, Khan, and Wasilka discovered a balcony up from which grew the spindly, curled branches of Elaipinaya, the tree native to the elf homeworld of Castravel. Knowing of Tessariel's work and failure on trying to invent a planetary tree stride spell, it was deduced that Urgathoa's forces are trying to recreate the ritual that brought the lost wizard here. Forming the party together once more, Lux Et Umbra looked further in, a room filled with filthy, rotten pillows upon which sat disgusting, gaunt Nosferatu and their mortal thralls. A plan was quickly hatched. Khan whipped up a divine poison specifically tuned to curdle the blood of vampires and injected it into spare plasma fruit. Danny used her bardic magic to disguise herself as Tessariel, filthy and scarred. The greedy Nosferatu devoured the offered fruit without question. Scarcely having time to regret their gluttony, the vampires' eyes burst from their skulls as their thralls ran away in fear. Walking past an enchanted mirror, Zavid was given a glimpse of a possible future, one that made crystal clear in his mind what must happen. If Cabriri's plan comes to pass, Lux Et Umbra will fail. The god of ghouls must not be allowed to ascend. Behind a magically protected and sealed door lay a dilapidated church. Putting together the broken pieces, Khan found a statue to Sarenrae, and Zavid a scroll with the Dawnflower's prayer written upon it. As Danny recited the prayer they all knew so well from Demirius's morning's dance, the scroll and statue began to glow, hinting at a lost truth. A forgotten connection between Sarenrae, goddess of the sun, and Urgathoa, goddess of undeath. Being led by the necromantic tug of the spirits within Bloodrot, Zavid discovered a mausoleum covered in what Danny recognized as Castravelli carvings. Reese and Wasilka pushed aside the massive stone door to reveal 3 smashed sarcophagi and a single desiccated corpse. Through keen investigative work and precise usage of the talking corpse spell, the pantheon of Galarian itself shook from what was discovered here. Urgathoa, the Pallid Princess, usurper of Eshtabai, and goddess of all undeath, was, in life, Urgathoa Evenheart, daughter to Archmage Talandia Adasteril, sister to Saint Danica Evenheart, and aunt to Queen Daniela Arion. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 32, Light's Void. Last time, Lux Et Umbra was still reeling from the secret they'd uncovered. Within the Palace of Bloodrot, in the realm of Abaddon, it was revealed that in life, in the distant past, Urgathoa, goddess of undeath, was the blood aunt of Queen Dani Arion. Zavid's powerful necromancy, coupled with Risa's understanding of various societies' death's rites, Khan's brilliant arcane mind, and Dani's melodic pleas, Hierophant Caspian Evenheart, father of Urgathoa, was raised as a Sayabre. The Lich Druids of Gozre are not well known, yet will make a powerful ally. Speaking to her grandfather for the first time, Dani had many questions but little time. Caspian confirmed that Dani's mother Danica and grandmother Talandia did indeed successfully perform a time travel ritual after Urgathoa's apotheosis. Walking as they talked, they soon came upon a large stone statue of a beautiful angel. Knowing the celestial language, Dani read the name on the plaque, Melek Taus, the Peacock Angel. Zavid, ever the theologic scholar, knew of Melek Taus as the leader of Iudica, the sixth tier of the Mountain of Heaven. Slain by Juriel, the rider of war, Melek Taus was kept by Urgathoa as a grim trophy. Until, that is, Zavid utilized stone-to-flesh magic, freeing the Peacock Angel. Hiding with the other undead, Dani translated while Rhys spoke, and Zavid huddled behind Khan. Melek Taus was pleased to have been freed and offered his help against Light's Void. With all the courage he could muster, Zavid overcame his crippling fear of angels and handed over Saphiel, an angel's soul trapped within a black sapphire, to the Peacock Angel, who happily accepted the ally. With a whoosh of feathers, Melek Taus set off towards Juriel's domain to retrieve his lost greatsword and a large side of vengeance. At the base of the tower, Zavid found a necroscrying orb. Not passing up an opportunity for information, he fired it up and looked through the eyes of various undead around Abaddon. First, within the throne room of Urgathoa, war daemons, watchtower shadows, and Light's Void herself loomed large. Second, the throne room of Juriel, rider of war, who was in a pitched battle with Melek Taus already. Lastly, through the eyes of a vampiric archer, honing his skill in the presence of a creature who looked shockingly like Ilkana Alinor. Scouting ahead, Dani and Caspian wild-shaped into spiders, creeping up the tower to the upper floor. The spiral staircase went high into the sky of Abaddon, leading to a magical ward which keeps out non-undead, a statue to Urgathoa which demands tribute, devotion, and love before one can reach the peak. Lux Et Umbra met back up in a makeshift classroom for fledgling undead, overseen by one of the three daughters of Urgathoa, Clotho. Using a skill bequeathed by Baba Yaga, everyone stepped within Dani's shadow as she flew in bat form to the ceiling. Rhys and Khan's attacks were swift and brutal, allowing Zavid to absorb Clotho's shadow within his staff, Memento Mori. Onward, Khan and Zavid found a small hole through which to squeeze, finding a massive taxidermied phoenix talon on the other side. Oddly, it cast no shadow, which surprised Zavid greatly as he took several feathers. Beyond a false wall, everyone once again stepped within the shadow of Zavid as he pilfered a sewing room of its beautiful gowns and robes. A training room lay beyond a door, filled with dummies all having many puncture wounds on their neck. It is clear these undead are being given both combat training and education. As he slithered and slunked across the floor, Zavid nearly gave away the game, but kept quiet as he looked up at Lachesis, daughter of Urgathoa. Nearly vibrating with anticipation, Khan leapt from her shadowy position, slashing the powerful undead across her throat with two artery-splitting slices. Zavid once again absorbed her shadow within Memento Mori with little issue. Seeing the futility of resistance, the vampire archers quickly declared fealty to Queen Dani and informed her where the last daughter of Urgathoa was. Khan crept up the lone wizard's tower, the rest of Lux Et Umbra neatly tucked within her shadow, to find the last of the three sisters, Atropos, poring through Tessariel's spellbook. In a flash, Khan, Rhys, and Wasilka sliced Atropos to shreds, giving Zavid his final opening to absorb her shadow. With Memento Mori powered up, Tessariel's spellbook returned, and Bloodrot Palace cleared. It was finally time. Up, up, up the highest tower they hiked, Dani gave her locket as tribute, returning it at last to its original owner. Knowing how to remove the barrier, Zavid and Caspian worked together to absorb the abjurative ward. With a few last-minute spells cast, Zavid beseeched Cabriri for aid. Him who Nas was only too happy to oblige, opening the door to Urgathoa's throne room and the enemies within. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 33, Learning from History. Last time, Lux Et Umbra stood within Urgathoa's throne room. Lights Void, the shadow of Urgathoa, sat upon the throne of souls, awaiting their arrival. Though the very air was cold, disinviting, and evil, our heroes leapt into action. As if the winds of Gozred themselves were at their backs, Danny's grandfather, Hierophant Caspian Evenheart, magically hastened everyone's movement. Khan the Bloody and Wasilka the Gastastic combined their circus skills and newfound powers to cartwheel themselves deep into the fray, making quick work of a weak Shadow Guardian. A Puro Daemon, hideous buzzard-like daemons pierced with weapons, brought forth a swirl of slicing weapons. However, this was swiftly dealt with by Zavid, wresting mental control from the simple-minded brute. Hoping for revenge against their prison wardens, Tessariel and Veltel began sowing chaos and destruction on the Pallid Princess's security systems. Upon the back of the flaming leopard Arwen, Rhys lived up to his namesake by lobbing a volley of arrows that sought hearts. Focusing all of the druidic magic she had learned into herself, Queen Dany transformed into a massive ancient blue dragon, blasting lightning from her fanged maw. Though calm at first, Light's Void became acutely annoyed at Zavid removing her death-stealing gaze with a wave of his hand. As Lux Et Umbra and their allies pressed forward, the carved snakes upon the floor came to life, biting and grasping any foolish enough to stand upon it. Khan, Wasilka, and the reprogrammed Karumzek alchemist bot spark-drifted and leapt along the stairwell, obliterating an orb that was bolstering Light's Void with unnatural shadows and bringing low a Puro Daemon. Staying out of sight, Rhys flanked round the eastern stair, sending a flurry of arrows into the weakling minions. Even with the imposing form of a blue dragon in the face of Light's Void, Zavid remains the undisputed master of pulling aggro. Receiving a devastating slash from Final Rest, a glimmering longsword wholly out of place in this shadowy creature's hand, the Umbromancer of Cabriri healed these burning wounds, much to the frustration of Light's Void. As the fight continued, Urgathoa's throne room began to defend itself from the mortal intruders, sending out waves of fear and causing the shadows in the room to become thick and difficult to wade through. Knowing firsthand how dangerous his daughter's powers had become, the Hierophant cast forth ancient druidic magics to push back the slick shadows. One by one, the allies of Light's Void fall. One by one, her abjurative wards shatter. What wrath will be wrought by a cornered, desperate half-goddess? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 34, The Lilac Gift. Last time, Lux Et Umbra continued their epic battle against Light's Void. In his wisdom, Hierophant Evenheart called out to destroy the shadowy orbs, bolstering her form as he unleashed a ringing shatter spell upon one. Heeding the Lich Druid, Wasilka leapt from balcony to balcony up to the throne of Urgathoa, showing off her circus-honed blade skills. Swooping in on back of Rot-Trot, Zavid reinvigorated the fading form of Veltel, the weeping banshee, with his necromantic shadow magic. Khan, backed up by the mentally dominated Puro Daemon, shattered one of the abjurative wards, empowering the shadow of Urgathoa. Finding herself surrounded, but newly invigorated by Zavid, Veltel shattered the last remaining orb with only the resonant power of her screeching voice. The buzzard-like Puro Demon swung its glaive at the massive blue dragon form of Queen Dany, but her powerful scales shrugged off most of the damage. However, this opened the War Daemon up for a final deadly volley of arrows loosed by Mike Celium and the Corpse Commandos, laying it low. In the chaotic fray, Dany opened her fanged maw, releasing another blast of draconic lightning, momentarily blinding Light's Void, which angered the half-goddess greatly. Growing more desperate by the moment, the shadow of Urgathoa unleashed a ground-shaking cataclysm spell, the likes of which is rarely seen on this or any other world. As the smoke cleared, Rhys and Veltel simply smiled, having not heard any bell. Atop the flaming leopard Arwen, Prince Rhys Guiltleaf began to elicit a warm glow, starting off slow, then beginning to grow. Filling the throne room with a blinding holy light, the power of Sarenrae herself seared the shadowy form of Light's Void.
He's a grower, not a shower.
He is a grower, not a shower. Having not felt true pain in countless ages, the shadow of Urgathoa shrieked, causing massive cracks to appear in the floor. Souls from the river Styx burst from the broken sewage pipes below the palace, flooding the room, causing everyone's sight to go black. A moment later, Lux Et Umbra awoke within a stone room, weapons pointed at their faces. Two elves stood before them, forcefully asking who they were in the tongue of ancient Osiriani. It soon became apparent that these were King Jarek Osirian and Kingsguard Amon Da, half of the Weave Watchers, a group of adventurers from the distant past. As Reese translated, Zavid explained to the Weave Watchers that their efforts in their time to hide the key to Rovagug's prison in the future were successful. Lux Et Umbra had been shunted into the past by the powers of the souls within the River Styx to the day of the ritual. As they looked beyond Jarek and Amanda, Khan and Danny spotted the tall, beautiful, blonde elves Talandia Adasaril and Danica Evenheart, Danny's grandmother and mother, both deep in a chanting magical trance. Realizing this is no mere illusion, but true time travel, Zavid had a moment of pause as he felt the power of the alignment of the four magical planets, Castrovel, Eox, Triaxis, and Aposte, as only two are aligned in his time. Understanding the scale of the power the Weave Watchers wielded in a rush of clarity, the Umbromancer of Cabriri realized this alignment acted as some sort of focus to amplify Talandia's Gate and Danica's miracle spells. Overseen by an infernal Duchess of Asmodeus, Eausrael the Untarnished Angel imbued the blood of Light's Blossom Danica Evenheart with the power of the key to the Dread Vault. Rovagug's prison, designed and built by the gods Abaddon and Torag, buried deep beneath Galarian by Sarenrae's flaming blade, calls to the forces of chaos for freedom and release. As the floor began to rumble, Amanda realized the vast hordes of Urgathoa's minions, the newly termed Undead, are bearing down upon the war room. Knowing she only had but a fleeting moment, Queen Danny raced to her mother's side, trying to say everything she had practiced in her mind and heart for 100 years or more. As tears streamed down her face, Danny made eye contact with Danica, who smiled brightly, warmly. The mother and daughter embraced for one last time as the power of the key surged into Danica's body, illuminating her eyes with the same searing lilac color that has come to be so familiar. The Chronomages ripped a tear in the very fabric of time and space, as Talandia and Danica stepped out of their world and into an uncertain future, not knowing if their efforts would ultimately be for naught. The walls around Lux Et Umbra began to rumble as swarms of ghasts flooded the room. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 4, Episode 35, A Deal with the Devil. Last time, Lux Et Umbra said a tearful goodbye. Knowing what needed to be done for the good of the multiverse, Queen Danny bade farewell to her mother Danica Evenheart one last time. Through a ritual performed by an infernal Duchess of Asmodeus and her cardinals, the key to the Dread Vault, prison of Rovagug, was imbued into the very essence and blood of Sarenrae's first prophet, Danica, the Light's Blossom. Utilizing the raw magical power granted her by the conjunction, High Archmage Talandia Adasaril and her Nethician Chronomages cast a weave-sundering 11th rank gate spell, ripping a tear within time itself. As Danica and Talandia stepped forward 28,000 years into their future, waves of ghasts began to pour into the war room. In this time, Urgathoa, the goddess of undeath, was known as the Pallid Usurper, as she opportunistically stole the mantle of Eshtabai, first god of death. Her vast armies rose from the corpse-littered fields of the Battle of the Beasts Binding. But through the cleverness, power, and sheer tenacity of the Weave Watchers, the key to the Dread Vault had successfully been hidden within time. Wasting no time, Lux Et Umbra leapt into battle to aid those who had stayed behind. Eausrael, the Untarnished Angel, cut a swath through the swarming undead, burning their rotten flesh asunder. Ever hungry to rain her awe-inspiring power down upon her foes, Khan called forth a chain of lightning so explosive it shook the foundations of King Jarek Osirian's castle. Reese effortlessly skewered ghast after ghast after ghast, a wild flurry of spear and hip thrusts. Seeing her friends and pets in harm's way brought a focus to Danny rarely seen, as she patched up wounds with suture, spell, and song. In the wild din of combat, voices came to Zavid through the chaos. Not Cabriri, a welcome change. The voices bade him channel his clerical powers. Confused at first, Zavid listened to the voices, bursting outwards with brilliant positive energy, burning away more hissing ghasts. In this distant past, the orcish twin gods Gork and Mork counted far more faithful than now, and as such they bestowed a gift upon this new weird boy out of time. Lux Et Umbra eventually stood victorious over a mountainous pile of ghast corpses, steeled themselves, and were shunted back to within Urgathoa's throne room. Light's Void, the shadow of Urgathoa, seething with anger and desperation, transformed herself into a truly massive shadow phoenix, yet even this power was not her own, as Zavid and Khan had discovered a talon from this phoenix from whom this shadow was stolen. Lux Et Umbra threw everything they had at the mighty demigoddess. Wasilka leapt upon Light's Void's back, grabbing a handful of feathers as she stabbed. Taking a cue from her hot childhood circus friend, Khan took to wing, did a barrel roll, landed upon and ran up the electrically crackling draconic spine of Dani to sink her gladius deep into the phoenix's vital spots. Dani released some pent-up anger in her dragon's rage, grappling Light's void and pinning her wings to the ground. In a blur, Rhys unleashed a hail of arrows crackling with elemental power into the quickly panicking Shadow Phoenix. Within Lux Et Umbra's hour of greatest need, the cavalry had finally arrived. Melik Tauz, the Peacock Angel, and Saphiel, Monadic Deva, both freed by Zavid, entered the battlefield, wielding their burning blades of celestial power. Kathshaz, the Unfaithful, Daemon imprisoned by Urgathoa for spreading joy, laughed as he savored the part he played in her inevitable downfall. Bursting through the door was a hulking skeletal titan, piloted by War Master Yerrick to haphazardly smash its rusty sword into the big bird. From a blazing inferno upon the floor, Flauros the Great Firemander rose up, enacting his vengeance over his imprisonment and having his fiery heat stolen away. As promised, the army of Lilypond, spearheaded by Sir Hop, repelled into the throne room, bolstering Lux Et Umbra with the magical croaks of their people. Finally, Zavid saw his moment. The shadow was weakened, and his staff called to him. Using the powers of Abadar, gifted him by Baba Yaga, Zavid crafted the perfect necromancer's staff. Pulling Light's void violently into her axiotite prison at the center of Memento Mori, the staff's true potential was unlocked. Though Lux Et Umbra has succeeded this day, and can take a small breath, there is still much left to be done.